The childhood friend who grew up in my home was selected by the factory this year to study abroad, but his first love wanted to drug him with spiked liquor, making him miss the opportunity to go abroad and stay instead. I couldn't bear to see everyone's hopes for him dashed, so I told my parents the truth. My parents were furious and reported it to the police. His first love was arrested and, unable to bear the criticism, hanged herself later. The successful childhood friend blamed me for everything and retaliated, causing my entire family to die tragically. Reborn into a new life, I stood by and watched his downfall, seeing his rivals rise to prominence in the tide of the times. With bright futures ahead, at the factory gate, Li Zhongfeng, adorned with a commendation red flower, walked through with a triumphant air. Li Zhongfeng is really handsome. Growing up with him, you've hit the jackpot, Wang Li said to me with a wink. In my past life, I naively believed that Li Zhongfeng and I were destined for each other. On my 18th birthday, I mustered up the courage to ask him to take a photo for me as a keepsake, but he impatiently turned me down. My parents also blamed me for being inconsiderate, saying I was holding him back from preparing for his study abroad interview. But that night, on a whim, I decided to bring Li Zhongfeng some late-night snacks, only to find him holding Chen Lan's hand in the factory dormitory, writing sweet vows on a piece of imported photo paper. Once Li Zhongfeng comes back from studying abroad, Qinghe, you'll be living the life of a rich wife. Wang Li's joke snapped me back to reality. A wealthy lady, as the daughter of the county academy's principal, I never had to worry about life since childhood, and I couldn't care less about vanity. But I didn't want Li Zhongfeng's 10 years of hard study to go to waste in an instant. So, someone who never believed in fate, I found myself praying for a safety charm in the Buddhist hall on the morning of the interview. To bring good luck, I went out while it was still dim to buy a celebration cake. When I happily carried it home, I saw Chen Lan, who shouldn't have been there, sneaking a conversation with a man by the bicycle shed. Is this drug really effective? Sister, rest assured, people from my hometown all use this drug, no matter how strong-willed. Once they drink it, they'll obediently give in. I listened with a flushed face and a racing heart for quite a while, initially thinking that Chen Lan was going to use it for the animals raised at home. Unexpectedly, after taking the medicine, Chen Lan actually said, I don't care whether he gives in or not, I just need him to miss his chance to go abroad tomorrow. Well said. Once a man goes abroad, how could he still remember his family? That man glanced a few times in the direction of our house and said with a greedy look, as long as you can marry into the Lin family, your brother here will get to enjoy the good life too. That building must be worth a fortune. Sis, after you marry Li Zhongfeng, can our family move in and live there too? Chen Lan said smugly. Of course, go back and wait for my good news. The brother and sister were actually plotting to harm Li Zhongfeng. I couldn't bear to see Li Zhongfeng's future ruined by Chen Lan, so after returning home, I told him about the conspiracy between Chen Lan and her brother, hoping he would stay alert and not fall into Chen Lan's trap. Li Zhongfeng, however, claimed that I was jealous of Chen Lan and had used such despicable means to slander her innocence. With no other choice, I had to turn to my parents for help. My parents were furious and immediately called the police, who searched Chen Lan on the spot, found the drugs in her hand, and took her away. Li Zhongfeng remained silent at the time, but the next day, he still passed the overseas assessment as scheduled. 3 years later, he returned from studying abroad, founded the first joint venture in the county, and became the youngest richest man. My parents were filled with relief, constantly sighing that their efforts had not been in vain. But that very year, Li Zhongfeng colluded with local thugs, smashed my father's academy under the pretext of fighting monopolies, and left our entire family homeless on the streets. Just before I died, he sneered and grabbed me by the throat. Lin Qinghe, it's all because of you, you bitch. That Chen Lan hanged herself. You and your whole family deserve to pay for her life. You deserve to starve to death on the streets, in that abandoned factory on the rainy night. After assaulting me, he was still not satisfied and had someone bring an iron rod, brutally breaking all 4 of my limbs. Now, Reborn, I will no longer interfere in the fate of this ungrateful person. To the misguided childhood friend, Li Zhongfeng's parents abandoned him at home and never returned. He struggled to survive alone in the countryside, lacking food and clothing. Yet, from a young age, he was exceptionally intelligent, able to recite the entire Xinhua dictionary by heart at the age of 5. After he started school, my father, recalling some old ties with his family and worried that the poor conditions in the countryside would waste his talent, specially arranged for someone to bring him from the village to the county town. He treated him like his own son, enrolling him in the best tutoring class in the county and carefully selecting every aspect of his food, clothing, and daily needs. After he won first place in consecutive county and city competitions, Only this opportunity to go abroad stood between him and a complete change of fate, but I had already made up my mind to let Li Zhongfeng walk his own path and never meddle in his affairs again. On the day of the interview, my father had the driver polish the car to a shine early in the morning and waited cheerfully in the yard. Not long after, my mother rushed over in a panic. Guoqiang, something terrible has happened. Zhongfeng, he's gone. My father thought he had misheard. What do you mean, gone? I've searched the entire house, the bathroom, the rooftop, I've looked everywhere, but there's no trace of Zhongfeng. My father's face turned pale, and his body swayed. I quickly stepped forward to support him. Dad, don't worry, maybe he went to the factory to report in on his own. He patted my hand and said, Qinghe has a point. How about this, old Zhang, take a few colleagues and search the area around the house again carefully. Shaoli, ride your motorcycle to the places Zhongfeng usually goes to. Check his friends' houses too. Hurry. This search went on until the foreign VIP who came for the interview had already left. Only then did the driver quietly whisper a few words into Dad's ear. What did you say? You saw it with your own eyes. The driver nodded with a worried expression. Absolutely true, Dean Lin. Dad, his face ashen, rushed over with a few people when he saw Qianlan held in Li Zhongfeng's arms. He was so furious that he raised his hand and slapped her. Li Zhongfeng protectively shielded Qianlan behind him, his face full of defiance. Uncle Lin, I was the one who got drunk and violated Qianlan's honor. If you want to blame someone, blame me alone. Don't involve the innocent. Nonsense. Father was furious. You were drunk and didn't know what you were doing. But this female worker was sober. Why didn't she shout or call for help the whole time? Just watched you miss the interview and ruin your future. Zhongfeng, you've been deceived. After hearing this, Qianlan bit her lips tightly, said nothing, but put on an expression of great grievance. Seeing this, Li Zhongfeng said with full sympathy, a girl's reputation is more important than anything. She would be too afraid to speak up, let alone shout. She was worried about her reputation. But do you know that missing the factory's selection without reason is equivalent to deceiving the leadership? A serious mistake. Li Zhongfeng had been clever since childhood. How could he not understand the gravity of this situation? Missing the interview was my fault. I'll take full responsibility for my actions and will never implicate Uncle Lin. Upon hearing this, Father, who had been holding on, went black and fainted. I quickly caught Father and, together with the driver, helped him back home. Qinghe, Li Zhongfeng called out to me, his eyes filled with guilt. I know you've had feelings for me since we were young, but my heart already belongs to Qianlan, and there's no room for anyone else. I'm sorry for letting you down. I gave a faint smile. Brother Zhongfeng, you jest. Some people are ambitious but have a weak foundation. When they meet someone of the same kind, they naturally attract each other. Li Zhongfeng's face immediately turned sour. Qianlan, on the other hand, looked aggrieved, as if wanting to lash out but not daring to. In the past, I was immature and didn't understand that feelings also require considering the principle of being well-matched in social status. In my past life, I once resented why Li Zhongfeng was so infatuated with Qianlan, a woman of humble origins, who was utterly worthless. Now, I finally see through it all. Li Zhongfeng came from the countryside to the county town, and his mindset of low status yet unwillingness to settle, wasn't that exactly the same as Qianlan, a female worker from the bottom rung compared to me, who could only silently care but never truly empathize. They were naturally more kindred spirits. Anticipating that things wouldn't end well, I had arranged for a doctor from the county hospital to be on standby at home. Now, it finally came in handy. Thank goodness Miss Lin had the foresight to call me over for duty. Otherwise, your father would have been in grave danger this time. I stood by my father's bedside with my head lowered. What foresight? I had simply finally seen Li Zhongfeng's true colors. Mom held my hand, tears streaming down her face as she looked at Dad, who was sleeping soundly. After Dad woke up, Li Zhongfeng, who had been missing for a long time, finally showed up, but she didn't come to apologize. Instead, Uncle Lin, I beg you, please agree to let me marry Qianlan. 3. The marriage storm. Dad thought he had misheard and asked Li Zhongfeng repeatedly several times, you want to marry her as your wife? Uncle Lin, you heard right. I, Li Zhongfeng, swear that I will marry no one but Qianlan in this lifetime. Mom wiped her tears, trembling with anger. You fool, have you lost your mind? Qianlan fell to her knees with a thud in front of her mother, sobbing, I already belong to Zhongfeng. If I can't marry him, I'd rather die. In every word she spoke, she emphasized that she wanted a proper marriage, cleverly shifting all the blame onto Li Zhongfeng. It was all Li Zhongfeng's fault for ruining her innocence. She had done nothing wrong. A blackmailer dares to cause trouble here. Old Zhang Go call the police and have her taken away. Hearing this, Li Zhongfeng hugged Qianlan tightly and shouted at Mom emotionally, Aunt Zhang has never treated me as family. Tell me, if I were your own son, would you treat his beloved like this? How ridiculous. Everyone in the Lin family knew that Li Zhongfeng was more like a child of the family than I, their own daughter. After he came to my home, my mother had the kitchen prepare special dishes for him for every meal, along with seasonal fruits. I might not get to eat them every day, but Li Zhongfeng never missed out on his share. Whenever he had a minor cold or fever, my father would take leave from work and stay by his bedside, never leaving his side to take care of him. My father doted on him. Over the years, he never did any housework, and everything he needed, food, clothing, and daily necessities, was readily provided. His life was even more comfortable than mine, his own biological daughter. In the end, he repaid kindness with enmity. If that's not an ungrateful wretch, what is? My mother was almost fainted from anger too. I tugged at my mother's sleeve and gently advised, Mom, forget it, the interview is over. Even if you arrest her, Li Zhongfeng can't get the opportunity to go abroad again. Quietly twisting the knife in Li Zhongfeng's heart, I continued, besides, you and Dad are just his foster parents. You can control him for now, but can you control him for his whole life? Why not just let them be and let him move out? With Qianlan, when I said I wanted them to move out, Qianlan was clearly panicked. Miss Lin, I know you're jealous of me and want to kick me out, but Li Zhongfeng grew up with you after all. No matter how angry you are, you shouldn't drive him away too. She claimed to be thinking about Li Zhongfeng's well-being, but in her heart, she was worried about having to live a hard life with him after moving out. Father also disagreed. How could he, who had poured all his efforts into raising this child, watch him face such a bleak future? He propped himself up weakly, looked at Li Zhongfeng, and said earnestly, have you ever thought that to achieve something in society and stand firm in the future, you'll need a well-bred wife to help you manage social relationships? He glanced contemptuously at Qianlan, but this girl's whole family are idle loafers and street scoundrels. They won't help your future development at all. They'll only hold you back. Li Zhongfeng's eyes flickered, clearly wavering, but seeing Qianlan in tears, he still stubbornly said, I don't care about that. Father clenched his fists, then finally let out a long sigh. Fine, I'll let you have your way. For rumors begin. How could you be so foolish, letting Zhongfeng do whatever he wants? After Li Zhongfeng left, Mother was so anxious she stomped her feet. I poured Father a glass of warm water and comforted Mother, saying, don't worry. Father must have another plan. Dad patted my hand with relief. You really understand me, Qinghe. Only by tasting bitterness can one grow and mature. Since he's set his mind on it, let him experience the hardships of life himself. One day he'll come to his senses. On the day Li Zhongfeng and Qianlan moved out, I personally handed Qianlan her factory file. From today onward, you are no longer a member of our factory, nor do you have any connection to the Lin family. Your married life from now on will depend entirely on your own choices and efforts. Qianlan took the file and flipped through it several times. She wasn't highly educated, so I didn't understand what she was looking for. I asked her, what are you searching for? I had already had the accountant settle Qianlan's due wages, and all the clothes I had given her were packed for her to take away. I couldn't think of anything else I owed her. Qianlan suddenly stared at me and said indignantly, Li Zhongfeng grew up in your family. Now that he's starting his own career and family, shouldn't Director Lin give him some support? It was only then that I realized she was blaming my parents for not giving them a settling allowance. Li Zhongfeng, standing beside her, remained silent, but his eyes were full of resentment, clearly thinking the same. Humph. What an ungrateful snake in the grass. China's marriage law stipulates that children have the obligation to support their parents. Children must fulfill their filial duties, and violators will face legal sanctions. Am I right, Li Zhongfeng? He frowned impatiently. So what if you're right? What exactly are you trying to say? I smiled slightly. Since you know the law, can you tell me which law says that foster parents must give their children money to buy a house, arrange their wedding, and cover their living expenses for life? What is this? Treating my parents like an ATM? Stung by my sarcasm, Li Zhongfeng's face turned pale and then red, utterly embarrassed. It was you who insisted on bringing him from the countryside to the county town. Because you thought he was smart. Since you brought him here, you should take full responsibility for him. So that's how they thought of it. My parents only brought you to the county town for school and provided you with living and study conditions. They didn't formally adopt you. If you want, you can go back to the countryside anytime. My uncle and aunt, who had yet to return, had eloped back then. Ignoring their family's objections after secretly conceiving a child they abandoned there. elderly parents and were never heard from again. Li Zhongfeng was truly their son, learning ingratitude at such a young age. Qianlan, don't grovel to her. As long as I have the ability, I'll make something of myself sooner or later, really, then I'll wish you success in making your dream come true in advance. But without my family's support, Li Zhongfeng would probably struggle to afford even the most basic living expenses, yet I never expected that. Just half a month later, a strange man would knock on my family's door. The man was dressed in rags, with a disheveled appearance, clearly from the lowest rung of society. His small eyes greedily surveyed my family's courtyard. The driver stopped him from entering, so he crouched at my family's front gate and burst into loud sobs. This is where my relatives live. What right do you have to stop me from entering? Come and see, fellow villagers. Director Lin is throwing his weight around. The child he raised ruined my sister's innocence, and now he won't even let me through the gate. My young and beautiful sister was deceived by their family, her feelings taken advantage of for nothing. His shameless behavior quickly drew a crowd of onlookers. I recognized him at once. It was Qianlan's idol brother, Qian San. If someone like him were allowed inside, he would surely spread rumors and slander our family everywhere later. I immediately blocked him at the door. My father has always been upright and honest. There's nothing he can't say in front of others. Let's settle this in front of everyone, so all can judge who is right and who is wrong. As soon as I finished speaking, the onlookers nodded in agreement. Miss Lin is right. Dean Lin has a good reputation in our county and is fair in his dealings. Just say it here. Qian San glared at me fiercely and said in a sinister tone, fine, I'll make it clear in public. Miss Lin, don't regret it. Back then, my brother-in-law had his own biological parents. But that sly old fox Lin Guoqiang saw that he was clever and had a bright future, so he snatched him away from his parents. Not only was he separated from his biological parents for over a decade, but the Lin family also often mistreated him, ordering him around. Now, just because he missed an opportunity to go abroad, they heartlessly kicked him out of the house. Everyone, judge for yourselves. Is there such an ungrateful, bridge-burning family like this? The onlookers sighed in disbelief. I never thought Dean Lin was this kind of person in private, I replied calmly. First of all, Li Zhongfeng was indeed born in the countryside. See, she admitted it. Qian San laughed triumphantly. Some in the crowd showed sympathy upon hearing the word countryside. The conditions in the countryside are too poor. Even sending kids to school is a struggle. I followed their lead and continued, that's right. Everyone knows the rural conditions are tough and educational resources are scarce. My father saw that Li Zhongfeng was exceptionally gifted and couldn't bear to see him waste away in the countryside, so he brought him to the county town. My father just wanted to give him a good learning environment and a better education. As for abuse, that absolutely never happened. You can ask any of our neighbors or workers. Qian San fumed. Your family will naturally take your side. At that moment, a neatly dressed young man stepped forward. I'm Zhou Qingxi, a co-worker of Li Zhongfeng at the factory. I can vouch for Miss Lin, that Li Zhongfeng wears brand-name clothes and has fair, smooth skin. There's no sign of abuse at all. You're clearly spreading rumors to slander Dean Lin with ulterior motives. I nodded to him gratefully. Thank you, Comrade Zhou, for speaking the truth. Qian San still tried to argue. Now that he wants to settle down and start a family, shouldn't you buy him a house and give my sister a place to live? No, my tone was firm. Li Zhongfeng gave up the opportunity to go abroad just to marry your sister without hesitation, and he swore he was a man of integrity who could support his wife on his own. If he has such backbone and wants to be self-reliant, yet you want my parents to keep supporting him, aren't you undermining his self-esteem? The onlookers were almost stunned when they heard that Li Zhongfeng had given up the state's elected opportunity to go abroad for Qianlan. A person in the crowd wearing glasses said disdainfully, I thought Li Zhongfeng had some special reason for missing the interview. But it turns out it was for a woman. So many of us are desperate to go abroad for a gilded resume, but he just wasted the country's investment and let down Dean Lin's over a decade of training. What an ungrateful wretch. Such an ungrateful person still has the nerve to ask the Lin family for money to buy a house. How utterly shameless. Even working in the same factory as him makes me feel ashamed. His impassioned speech won applause from the crowd. Well said, we also despise such ungrateful people. Seeing the situation turn unfavorable, Qian San had already slipped away. After the crowd dispersed, I sincerely thanked Zhou Qingxi. Thank you, Comrade Zhou, for speaking up for justice. I am truly grateful. He waved his hand casually and said with a smile, not at all. I just can't stand seeing good people being bullied. Moreover, Miss Lin remained calm in the face of danger, with clear logic and sharp thinking. Truly a woman of extraordinary talent. I don't really have any talent, It's just that after experiencing life and death once, I'm no longer as timid and fearful as I used to be. You flatter me, Comrade Joe. I just want to manage my own little family well. Keeping a household in perfect order is no easier than striving outside. I was just speaking my mind, but at the factory gate, Zhou Qingxi looked at me thoughtfully, his eyes bright and piercing. 5. The list is announced soon. The day for announcing the admission list arrived. Li Zhongfeng didn't go to the interview, and our family had no interest in joining the excitement either. The list of those going abroad is posted at the factory headquarters building. Today, it's just being shown to others. There's nothing special about us going. Wang Li stubbornly dragged me out of the house. Who cares about looking at some list? I want to see the young guys in our factory. The Jinyu department store was right across from the factory headquarters. Wang Li and I sat in a small restaurant on the second floor, ordering 2 cups of milk tea and a few pastries. We quietly watched the bustling crowd coming and going downstairs. This year's study abroad list is quite interesting. The 2 best technicians in the factory are competing for the only opportunity to go abroad. Let's see who comes out on top. Wang Li muttered under her breath. These people probably don't know that your Li Zhongfeng missed the interview. What a pity. Only the factory leaders knew the selection results. The workers outside had no idea about the real situation. As soon as she finished speaking, she nudged my arm. Look, who's that? Across the street, there stood Li Zhongfeng and Chen Lan. Chen Lan was carrying a vegetable basket, as if she had come out to buy groceries and happened to pass by. Seeing the crowd bustling at the factory gate, Li Zhongfeng's face darkened as she quickened her pace, wanting to leave. Isn't this technician Li? The list is about to be announced. You've come just in time, Li. Zhongfeng was about to refuse this kindness when the crowd in front of the bulletin board suddenly stirred. Spring 1984, Overseas Study Quota, Zhou Qingxi. The worker froze, meeting Li Zhongfeng's icy gaze, and muttered awkwardly, "Why isn't it technician Li?" No wonder Li Zhongfeng's expression was so grim. Zhou Qingxi and he were both in the technical department, but they had always been at odds with each other. They were at odds at work, and privately, they fought fiercely over the title of advanced producer in the factory for Li Zhongfeng. It would have been fine if someone else had gotten this opportunity, but the fact that Zhou Qingxi was chosen made him so jealous that he couldn't sleep or find peace. Suffering unbearably, Li Zhongfeng coldly shook off that person's hand, and as he turned to leave, undisguised disappointment and pain flashed in his eyes. Chen Lan stepped forward and happened to catch sight of his dejection. Wang Li poked me again. Look, the show is starting. Chen Lan, with tears in her eyes, looked at Li Zhongfeng with grievance. Zhongfeng, are you blaming me? Li Zhongfeng clenched his fists, held back again and again, but finally raised his hand and gently tucked Chen Lan's windblown hair behind her ear. How could that be? Even if I don't go abroad, my future achievements won't necessarily be inferior to theirs. Wang Li was astonished and clicked her tongue in wonder. So Li Zhongfeng falls for this kind of thing. I don't care what he falls for, it's just that he missed the national selection without reason. The factory leaders didn't pursue it earlier because they were busy screening candidates and had no time to deal with it. Now that the list has been announced, I'm afraid our family will also be implicated. I hurried home and told my father about this. My father snorted coldly. If the factory leaders wanted to hold someone accountable, why would they wait until today? It was the newly selected Zhou Qingxi who pleaded for our family. The leaders are reasonable and know that our family is also a victim in this matter concerning Li Zhongfeng, so they let it go. Father has always been an upright man, and with Zhou Qingxi's help in pleading his case, he managed to avoid trouble. But Li Zhongfeng, alas, what a pity for Zhongfeng. Father sighed. I'm afraid he'll never have a chance at promotion in this lifetime, wasting the factory's training. He was only stripped of his promotion eligibility. The punishment wasn't severe, but how many decades does one have to start over? 6. Blocking the wedding path soon. I had no time to dwell on it. As Zhou Qingxi's mother came to propose marriage, Mom asked for my opinion. It's Mom's fault. I always thought you'd eventually marry. I never seriously considered your marriage. She smiled and patted my hand. Your father and I think Zhou Qingxi is a good match. He comes from a respectable family, is down to earth, and has the opportunity to study abroad. So many girls in the factory have a crush on him, but he's never been interested. He's a loyal and devoted person, unlike your. When mentioning Li Zhongfeng, Mom's face showed worry again. I put down the half-knitted sweater. I like Comrade Zhou too. He is open-minded and considerate, able to respect my thoughts and opinions, which is rare in today's society. The matchmaking and gift-giving were done, and the wedding date was soon set. On the day of the deafening gongs and drums and the booming firecrackers, I got into the wedding car wearing a red hat. Sitting in the car as it started, a hand with distinct knuckles, slender and strong, reached in through the window. Sweetheart, have something sweet first. It was a chocolate candy. I took it and took a small bite, the sweet taste melting between my lips and teeth. The wedding car hadn't gone far when it suddenly stopped, and the sound of arguing outside rose and fell. Peeking through the curtain, I saw a shabby bicycle across the way, pulling a simple bridal sedan chair, blocking us at the intersection. Neither side giving way. Looking at Li Zhongfeng, although he was wearing a red groom's outfit, the clothes were wrinkled and utterly lackluster. In just a few months, he had lost a lot of weight, his face turning sallow. The bridal sedan chair behind him was worn and dilapidated, with even patches on the curtain. There wasn't even a decent dowry behind the sedan chair, if it weren't for Li Zhongfeng still wearing the groom's attire. Who would have thought this was a wedding? Li Zhongfeng seemed to sense someone watching him and looked straight at me without any pretense. I quickly lowered the curtain and fixed my hair. After the wedding, Li Zhongfeng secretly came to see me. "Qinghe, why did you marry Zhou Qingxi? You know I have a grudge against him, so why did you?" I didn't want to talk to him much, so I replied perfunctorily, "It's enough that he's a good person. His bad relationship with Li Zhongfeng suited me just fine, so I wouldn't have to see Li Zhongfeng often after getting married. Marriage is such a big deal. How can you be so hasty? Qinghe, tell me honestly, do you still have feelings for me? Are you rushing into marriage just to get back at me and Chenlan?" How utterly shameless. It almost made me sick to my stomach seeing me staring straight at him without a word. He actually said, "Qinghe, I regret it. I originally thought it was just a missed opportunity to go abroad. Even if I couldn't go this time, there were plenty of masters in the factory who had never been abroad and still became technical backbones." The corners of my mouth lifted slightly, my eyes full of mockery. He had always thought highly of himself, believing that all the good things in the world should make way for him. Why should everyone and everything revolve around him? Chenlan's house was dilapidated and cramped, barely enough room to turn around. When it rained, the roof leaked, and several technical manuals I brought back from abroad were completely soaked. The next day, I wanted to take the books out to dry and try to salvage them, but when I got up, I saw Qian San selling those precious materials to the recycling station as waste paper. After listening to his complaints, I found it both amusing and pathetic. Li Zhongfeng usually guarded those technical manuals more preciously than his own life, not even letting me flip through them, yet now Qian San, that illiterate man, had sold them off as scrap paper. So what can you do about it? Chenlan and her family weren't your own choice, but I regret it. Qinghe, you clearly saw me about to make a mistake. Why didn't you stop me? If you had stopped me back then, I would be the one studying abroad now, the one getting an exceptional promotion at the factory upon return, and the one marrying you. It would have been me. How absurd. In my past life, wasn't it because I stopped him that he repaid my kindness with enmity, leading to the tragic deaths of my entire family? He blamed me, simply because he didn't want to bear the reputation of being heartless and ungrateful. He wanted me to be the villain, so that he could achieve success in both career and love in the future. What a well-calculated scheme. However, I learned a lesson. Good intentions lead to bad outcomes, and you reap what you sow. Respect others' choices and hold back unnecessary sympathy. I pushed him away. Li Zhongfeng, you're wrong. Whether you marry Chenlan or not has nothing to do with me. In this life, whether he succeeds or fails, whether he is rich or poor, it has nothing to do with our Lin family. 7. Severing all ties. On the day of the return visit, my parents saw me with a face full of joy on the surface, but a hint of unspeakable worry lingered between their brows. With Zhou Qingxi present, I didn't feel comfortable asking too many questions, so I took the chance to inquire while my mother showed me around the new house. Mom said that after Qian San realized Li Zhongfeng's technical manual was valuable, instead of selling it as scrap paper, he sold all of it at a low price to a private factory he knew. The money he got wasn't used to fix the house or buy rice and flour, let alone to purchase work supplies for Li Zhongfeng. It all went straight into the gambling den. When Zhongfeng went to ask for the money back, not only did Qian San refuse to give it, but he also cursed her, calling her a useless waste who couldn't earn money yet had a huge appetite. To be fair, that wasn't entirely wrong. Aside from being good at studying, Li Zhongfeng really didn't have much practical skill. Not only did they curse her, but they even beat Zhongfeng severely. That girl Chenlan was also heartless, watching her brother beat Zhongfeng into serious injury, even disfiguring her face. At this point, my mother's eyes reddened. Our factory has a rule that anyone with obvious facial scars is not allowed to work on the export production line. As a result, even if the conditions are relaxed 10 years later, Li Zhongfeng will no longer be young. I gently patted my mother on the back and comforted her. It doesn't matter if he can't get into foreign trade. As long as he is willing to work hard, with his knowledge, he can support himself as a technician or engineer. Hearing this, my mother immediately understood what I meant. Qinghe, Are you, Mom? I still say the same thing. He is not your and Dad's biological son, as they say. You can never know what's in a person's heart, when everything was going smoothly for him before, he was already ungrateful, so now there's even less hope. My parents finally realized that Li Zhongfeng was an ungrateful person and made up their minds to cut off all ties with him completely. The door was tightly shut. Who would have thought that 3 months later, Li Zhongfeng would show up at my doorstep with a heavily pregnant Chenlan, both kneeling on the ground. Only my mother was home, and I was worried she wouldn't be able to handle it. Upon receiving the news, Zhou Qingxi immediately accompanied me back in a hurry. In just a few months since I last saw him, Li Zhongfeng had a scar running from his brow to his chin, completely ruining his once handsome features. His jet black hair was now streaked with gray, and as he knelt there with a hunched back, it was hard to believe he was barely in his 20s. Seeing Zhou Qingxi carefully supporting me, Li Zhongfeng's eyes were filled with jealousy and resentment. Before his marriage, he had still outshone Zhou Qingxi in every way. Now, just a few months later, Zhou Qingxi had returned from abroad with a promising future, while Li Zhongfeng was so destitute he couldn't even afford a decent set of clothes. For someone as proud as Li Zhongfeng, how could he not harbor hatred? Qinghe, please put in a good word for me with Uncle Lin, and let Chenlan and me come back home to stay. If it weren't for Uncle Lin's strict discipline back then, I wouldn't have been so rebellious as to do such a foolish thing. From now on, I will never talk back to Uncle Lin again and will follow all his arrangements. To this day, he still doesn't know where he went wrong, and his words still hint that my dad is too controlling. Qinghe Jia, Chenlan, her face sallow, spoke up. The unpleasantness of the past is behind us. Now we're all one family, and the child in my belly will one day call you aunt. She sure knows how to claim kinship, but unfortunately, I have no intention of acknowledging it. Seeing that I wasn't responding, she shamelessly continued, Zhongfeng won't be able to go abroad in this lifetime, but our child will surely carry on his ambition, get into a top university in the future, and bring honor to the Lin family. So you're saying our family still has to cover their child's education expenses? You and I were once just colleagues at the factory, and now even that relationship no longer exists, so it would be best if you just called me Miss Lin. As for Li Zhongfeng, you once said that everyone in the Lin family was cold and heartless, and only Chenlan didn't look down on your background, treated you with genuine kindness, and secretly gave you good food and useful things. But have you ever considered that without my tacit approval, how could an ordinary female worker have gotten her hands on those imported foods and trinkets? At these words, the two people kneeling at my doorstep changed color dramatically. Chenlan's face turned pale. She clearly hadn't expected that I had long known about her secret affair with Li Zhongfeng but had never exposed it. Not even at the wedding. Now, everything has changed, yet I have suddenly uncovered her true face. She exclaimed in disbelief. How could you possibly know? That's impossible. In my past life, right up until the moment I died, I never understood. Chenlan was plain looking, and there were so many pretty girls in the factory. Why did Li Zhongfeng set his sights on her of all people, reborn into a new life? I observed carefully and finally uncovered the trick behind it. Li Zhongfeng glared fiercely at Chenlan. Is what Qinghe said true? No, it's not real. I saved all those things up for you through my own hard work. But the panic in her eyes had already betrayed her guilt. Li Zhongfeng went mad with rage and slapped her hard across the face. You bitch, you've ruined my entire life. If you hadn't drugged my drink and seduced me, making me miss the chance to go abroad, I would have been promoted to section chief by now. Unlike now, when I never know where my next meal is coming from, and in this freezing weather, I can't even afford a decent cotton-padded coat. You ruined my future. You ruined my life. With that, he lunged forward and grabbed Chenlan by the neck, his eyes filled with murderous intent, exactly like Li Zhongfeng, who had shown me no mercy in my past life. There are too many eyes and ears here. Li Zhongfeng, you'd better go home to settle your accounts. Unexpectedly, as soon as I finished speaking, Chenlan let out a sharp scream, and a pool of bright red appeared beneath her. Seeing this, Li Zhongfeng turned pale, released his grip, and shouted at me, quick, carry her inside and call a doctor. Zhou Qingxi, who had been standing silently beside me, asked, should we let them in? It was indeed a matter of life and death now. But it wasn't us who caused Chenlan's premature labor, it was Li Zhongfeng's own doing. If I softened and let them in, called a doctor, and something happened to Chenlan or the child, Li Zhongfeng would surely blame us for the rest of our lives. I shook my head. The owner of the pharmacy across the street is a midwife. You'd better carry Chenlan over there. It'll be much faster than waiting for a doctor at home. But I still underestimated the malice of human nature. Watching Chenlan writhe in pain, Li Zhongfeng insisted on using her and the child to threaten me into letting them in. Chenlan, hold on a little longer. If we can't find a decent place for our child, we might as well not have it. Qinghe is so kind-hearted, she definitely won't stand by and watch us die. What were they doing before this when they decided to have a child? Didn't they ever think about how that leaky shack they live in could shelter the baby from wind and rain? The baby is almost due, and they still have nothing. Now they come to threaten me. Li Zhongfeng, you've gone too far. Don't forget that Chen Lan's brother is a desperado. If anything happens to her, that half-decent face of yours might not stay intact either. With that, I pulled Zhou Qingxi back into the house. No matter how much Li Zhongfeng begged or roared, the door to my home would never open for him again. 9 The outcome is set. 5 days later, news came simultaneously that Chen Lanqing and Li Zhongfeng had hanged themselves. Dad didn't say a word after hearing it, and in an instant, he seemed to have aged 10 years. After a long silence, he asked the messenger in a low voice, "Did he leave any last words?" The man replied with a strange expression, "Yes, the night before he hanged himself, he kept muttering deliriously, saying he had a dream where he went abroad to gild his resume, came back, and became the factory director. He also said that this life now was fake." Mom and Dad didn't understand what this meant, only assuming that Li Zhongfeng was mentally disturbed and talking nonsense before his death. Only I knew in my heart that the reason Li Zhongfeng committed suicide was most likely because he remembered everything from his past life. After waking up, faced with the vast gap between reality and dreams, I couldn't accept it for a moment and chose to end my life. I don't know how many times life can be relived, but I'm certain that a selfish and self-serving petty person like Li Zhongfeng, who always blames others when things go wrong, will never have a good ending no matter how many times she is reborn. Zhou Qingxi came to pick me up and take me home. Light snowflakes began to fall from the sky. I reached out to catch one, but he nervously pulled my hand over and tucked it into his pocket to keep it warm. "You're a mother now. Still so childish. What if you catch a cold?" I smiled and linked my arm through his. Not a child anymore. I'm the mother of his child. Zhou Qingxi lifted me up in surprise and joy. "Really? I'm going to be a dad, Qinghe. You are the best gift heaven has ever given me." You are too. Being reborn, having him and our baby, and having parents who love me dearly, this is the most precious gift heaven has given me. The end. That's the end of the first story. Don't go away. The next story is even more exciting. My officer husband Shen Jing's childhood sweetheart, Zhong Tian, fell from upstairs and got a concussion. Insisting that I pushed her to vent Zhong Tian's anger, Shen Jing's ignored my pleas and struggles, ordering the guards to forcibly drag me, who was pregnant, into confinement. When I was released, I was covered in blood, and the baby in my womb had miscarried. Shen Jingza seemed to show some remorse, gently holding my hand and telling me that we were still young and would have more children. I just sneered coldly. He and I would never have children again. I deliberately beat my abdomen to cause the miscarriage, because I knew that both Shen Jingza and the child in my womb were ungrateful wolves. They would drive me to a dead end for Zhong Tian, leaving me with no place to rest in death. I have lived a life where I was at others' mercy, and in this life I want to change my tragic fate in advance. Years later, I became a wealthy asset tycoon. Meanwhile, Shen Jingza, who had soared to success in my previous life, turned into a worthless wreck. "Comrade, the baby in your womb has suffered a strong impact and shows signs of threatened miscarriage. You must stay in bed for the next few days, otherwise, the baby might not survive." The intermittent voices beside me, along with the pain in my abdomen and body, gradually brought my hazy consciousness back. The red slogans on the green walls, the model doors. Could these be things from 40 years ago? But wasn't I already dead? After being sent to prison by Shen Jingza for 5 years, I died a painful death from a terminal illness. Why would someone who is already dead see a scene from 40 years ago? Before I could fully figure it out, the hospital door was slammed open. A young man in military uniform, carrying a chill in his demeanor, rushed to the bedside where I was lying. "Li Xiangwan, why did you push Tian so viciously? Do you know she almost died?" I swallowed the words that were about to leave my mouth. What's the use of denial or explanation? In my past life, I denied it and explained that it wasn't my fault, but Shen Jingza simply didn't believe me. He only believed Zhong Tian. Shen Jingza roared at me, his face filled with fury. My gaze fell on Shen Jingza's face, which was decades younger. Shen Jingza in his 20s was truly incredibly handsome, with a high, straight nose and chiseled features. Even his eyes, blazing with anger as they stared at me, were captivating. In my past life, I was madly in love with Shen Jing's face, giving myself to him without regret, groveling and losing all dignity for his sake. But in the end, I met a miserable death. I was so naive back then. Even after being set up by Zhong Tian and sent to prison by Shen Jingza, Even after being diagnosed with a terminal illness with only a few days left to live, I still thought about Shin Jingze with all my heart. I always believed that everything was Zhong Tiantian's scheme, and I convinced myself that Shin Jingze was deceived and innocent. It wasn't until I learned that I had cancer with only a few days left to live that I entrusted my doctor to arrange a meeting with Shin Jingze and my son. But they ruthlessly refused. The doctor told me sympathetically that Shin Jingze was accompanying Zhong Tiantian on a trip abroad to fulfill her birthday wish and had no time to see me, telling me to reflect on my mistakes. While in prison, my son also sent word to me, telling me to go ahead and die if I wanted, so I wouldn't embarrass him or make things difficult for his father, Shin Jingze. I was already terminally ill, barely holding on by a thread. Upon hearing this, I coughed up blood and collapsed. I never expected to get a second chance to see Shin Jingze's young face again, to look at this man I had loved for decades and who had let me down for just as long. The love in my heart had vanished completely. In truth, if Shin Jingze had been honest with me in my past life, if he had simply told me that he loved Zhong Tiantian, even as deeply as I loved him, I would have stepped aside and blessed their union. But Shin Jingze never told me he loved Zhong Tiantian. He kept insisting that he was only helping her out of gratitude, that he saw her only as a younger sister under the high-sounding pretext of repaying a favor. He engaged in all sorts of illicit affairs with Zhong Tiantian. The desolate life of toiling for others, along with the despair and pain before death, made it impossible for me to suppress the intense hatred surging in my heart. I stared straight at Shin Jingze. If I could, I would bite Shin Jingze hard to vent the anger for the innocent and pitiful version of myself in my past life. Shin Jingze didn't notice my expression was off and continued roaring at me. I never thought you could be such a vicious and shameless person. Li Xiangwan, don't think that just because you're pregnant, you can escape punishment. I'm telling you, this time, I won't let you off. Shin Jingze's words made me sneer. How exactly are you not going to let me off? I want you to apologize to Tiantian, and I'm going to put you in confinement, make you deeply reflect on your mistakes. Same old routine, as expected in my past life. Shin Jingze also gave me two non-negotiable conditions like this. First, apologize and admit fault to Zhong Tiantian. Second, be confined and accept punishment too. Reflect on my mistakes. Both conditions were indispensable. No one believed my explanation, and I was eventually forced to apologize and admit fault to Zhong Tiantian. I thought Shin Jingze would let me off, considering our 5 years of marriage and the fact that I was pregnant, but I was overthinking it. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, Shin Jingze ruthlessly arranged for guards to send me to the confinement room. I tearfully begged Shin Jingze, telling him I was pregnant and asking him to spare me for the sake of the child I was carrying, but he still punished me afterward. However, Shin Jingze showed no mercy at all. He said I was vicious and unrepentant, and insisted that I must pay the price for my actions. He wanted me to learn my lesson so I would never make the same mistake again. During those 7 days of pitch-black confinement, the only thing I could do each day was count the numbers and wait to leave. In those 7 days, Shin Jingze never came to see me, and the guards also forgot that a pregnant woman like me was locked in the solitary cell. It wasn't until Shin Jingze returned from accompanying Zhong Tiantian to the capital for medical treatment that he realized I was still confined in the cell. A normal person would die after 7 days without food or water. By the time I was released, I had already fallen into a deep coma. It was also my luck that I didn't die completely. I was rushed to the hospital and fought for my life for several days before finally pulling through. Because I hadn't eaten or drunk anything for 7 days, my bodily functions were severely damaged, and I developed a serious stomach condition. This was probably one of the reasons I later got cancer and was doomed to die. When I was released, Shin Jingze felt guilty for a time and treated me very well. I thought he loved me, and because I loved him, I forgave him. But later, Zhong Tiantian told me that Shin Jingze was only nice to me because he was afraid I would report him to my superiors. After all, if I had died in solitary confinement, taking both my life and the baby's, Shin Jingze's political career would have been affected. I didn't believe Zhong Tiantian's words, so I fell into one vicious cycle after another. In my pitiful past life, I kept painting castles in the air for myself until the very end, believing that Shin Jingze loved me, and that he was merely deceived by Zhong Tiantian. That was all. In this life, knowing everything that happened before, I will never be fooled by Shin Jingze's facade again, because no love should be an endless source of harm. I looked at Shin Jingze and said, word by word, I did nothing wrong, I won't apologize, and you have no right to confine me. Enraged by my words, Shin Jingze demanded, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Since you're so stubborn and unyielding, don't blame me. The veins on Shin Jingze's forehead bulged as he shouted toward the door, bring Li Xiang. take him to the solitary confinement room for reflection. I was dragged to the solitary confinement room by the guards. In my past life, I cared too much about saving face, and to preserve Shinjing's dignity as well. I chose to be taken to the solitary confinement room by the guards without a word. In this life, I won't make such a foolish mistake. When the guards came to seize me, I shouted at the top of my lungs, "Murder! Shinjingza wants to kill me, his lawful wife, and the child in my womb for his mistress Zhong Tian. Help, I've been wronged." Shinjingza never expected me to cry out for justice so shamelessly. Everyone around looked over, and their murmurs made him lose face. Shinjingza had no choice but to cover my mouth with his own hands. Hatred made me bite down viciously on the hand he used to cover my mouth. Blood flowed into my mouth, a fishy smell spreading, and I saw Shinjingza's face contort in pain. Does it hurt? It must hurt. After all, it's bleeding, but compared to the pain I endured in my past life, what is this? I was escorted to the solitary confinement room under the gaze of onlookers, and everyone who saw this was whispering among themselves, "What did Li Xiongwan do wrong to deserve being locked up like this?" I heard she pushed Zhong Tian. Zhong Tian was seriously injured, so Chief Shin acted impartially and made Li Xiongwan reflect on her actions. So that's how it is, she's just reaping what she sowed. Can't say that either, right? Li Xiongwan has a gentle personality and doesn't seem like such a vicious person. Besides, isn't she pregnant? Look, her forehead is still bleeding. Chief Shin treating his own wife like this for an outsider is really too heartless, isn't it? Yeah, Chief Shin cares way too much about that Zhong Tian. Chief Shin is a man of passion, clear in his favors and grudges. He's repaying a debt of gratitude to Zhong Tian. Even so, it feels excessive. Li Xiongwan is pregnant, you know. The law doesn't even immediately sentence a murderer to death if she's pregnant. Besides, this is just a simple dispute. Chief Shin is way too protective of Zhong Tian. The murmurs around him made Shinjing's face turn pale. He never dreamed that I, who was gentle and quiet, would make him lose face like this. After I was thrown into the solitary confinement cell, he ordered the guard to lock the door. Li Xiongwan, I never thought you would be such a shrew. I originally planned to lock you up for 7 days, but seeing you like this, 7 days is clearly not enough. Reflect on yourself in there. For half a month after throwing out these words, Shinjingza stormed off angrily. The door of the solitary confinement cell was shut, and inside it was pitch black, without a ray of light. In my past life, I spent a terrifying 7 days here, unconscious and on the brink of death. After barely recovering, I was then set up by Zhong Tian, causing a premature birth. To give birth to that cursed child in my womb, I suffered immensely, hemorrhaged, and had my uterus removed. I poured all my love into the only child in my womb, but that cursed child was as vicious and shameless as his biological father, Shinjingza. He actually liked Zhong Tian instead of me, his own mother. Thinking of all the pain I endured in my past life, a cold smile curled at the corners of my lips. I won't give that vicious and shameless cursed child a chance to survive. I clenched my hand into a fist and began punching my lower abdomen, one blow after another. Half an hour later, my agonizing screams rang out, shaking the heavens and the earth. Someone who heard the noise came and opened the solitary confinement cell, only to find me lying on the ground, covered in blood. I had a miscarriage. I was sent to the hospital, drenched in blood. Shinjingza, who had been by Zhong Tian's bedside, leaped to his feet upon hearing from the guard that I had a miscarriage and was taken to the hospital. He rushed out of the ward in a hurry, completely oblivious to the triumphant smile in Zhong Tian's eyes as she lay in bed. After my uterine curettage, I was wheeled out of the operating room and immediately saw Shinjingza standing outside, his face grim. He stepped forward to shake my hand, and I gave him one word: get lost. Shinjingza stepped back 2 paces, staring blankly as the nurse wheeled me away from him. After the nurse finished my 4 drip, Shinjingza actually followed me back in. Standing in the ward, his face bore a rare hint of sorrow. Was he sad because of the loss of the child? How could that be? In my past life, that accursed child who always sided with Zhong Tian kept saying that if he hadn't existed, Shinjingza would have divorced me long ago and married Zhong Tian. Because of his existence, Shinjingza couldn't bear to end this marriage of convenience with me. So now that the bastard child is gone, Shinjingza must be very happy, right? I watched Shinjingza slowly walk to the hospital bed. I looked at him indifferently. Without joy or sorrow, Shinjingza reached out to touch me, but perhaps because my expression was too cold, he withdrew his hand. In a dry tone, he said, "Xiongwan, I never expected this to happen with the child. Take good care of yourself. We'll have another one in the future." Another child? There will still be children. Is this to comfort me? After all, The fact that I had a miscarriage in the solitary confinement cell must have already spread throughout the military district. Shinjingza is admired for his strict military discipline. But being so ruthless toward his own partner, I wonder what people will say about him. Gossip, not to mention that my miscarriage also involves another woman. Shinjingza's kindness to Zhong Tian is obvious to all. I think rumors must have started spreading outside by now, right? I will definitely add fuel to the fire to make the rumors even more intense. As I was thinking this, a nurse hurriedly pushed open the door to find Shinjingza. Commander Shen, Comrade Zhong has fainted after falling. According to the nurse, Zhong Tian wanted to come see me after learning about my miscarriage. But she was too weak and collapsed after just a few steps. She fainted in the hallway. Zhong Tian has always used such tactics to win Shinjingza over. It worked every time in her past life, but this time, it might backfire on her. Shinjingza was worried that Zhong Tian had left, and I lay in bed, sobbing uncontrollably. Hearing my cries, the nurses, doctors, and even people from the neighboring rooms came over. Knowing I had lost my child, everyone kindly tried to comfort me. I wiped away tears while crying, recounting to the nurses, doctors, and curious patients everything Zhong Tian and Shinjingza had done, their dirty deeds. Ever since Zhong Tian showed up, the heart of Shinjingza, the other half on my marriage certificate, had completely strayed. Shinjingza arranged a job for her and even gave most of his salary to Zhong Tian to spend. Zhong Tian clung to Shinjingza all day, deliberately provoking me, causing me and Shinjingza to argue, and constantly finding excuses to call him away. She would summon Shinjingza even in the dead of night. She had no qualms about using thunder, rain, or fear as excuses to call Shinjingza away to stay with her all night. Zhong Tian even made arrogant threats, saying she would kill the child in my womb and force me to divorce Shinjingza. What I said are all things that Zhong Tian has done, and the people in the military district have actually seen it with their own eyes. They just didn't know that the two of them were actually alone together late at night in a room, and so, the look in everyone's eyes changed. On top of that, now that I've lost the baby in my belly, Shinjingza doesn't care about me after the miscarriage, yet he comes running whenever Zhong Tian calls. He comes and goes as she pleases, and everyone has seen it. The nurses, doctors, and fellow patients all listened with righteous indignation. Judging by their expressions, I knew that the news of Shinjingza and Zhong Tian's affair would spread throughout the entire military compound in no more than 2 days. Shinjingza was summoned for a talk by his superiors. Shinjingza explained to his superiors that he and Zhong Tian were completely innocent, and that he was only helping her out of gratitude. The leaders believed Shinjingza, but the rumors outside were too rampant. The leader, Shinjingza's old superior, was very fond of him and reminded him to be mindful of his image and keep his distance from Zhong Tian. When Shinjingza appeared in the hospital again, his face was completely darkened. As soon as he closed the door, he warned me, "Li Xiangwan, you almost ruined me. Because of your recklessness, I was called in for a talk by my superiors. Do you know how much of an impact this will have on my future promotion?" I curled the corner of my mouth. It's good that it has an impact. In my past life, I endured humiliation and suffering in silence, while Shinjingza and Zhong Tian lived freely and arrogantly. After going through such a painful experience, how could I possibly let him enjoy the same smooth career advancement in this life as he did in the last? Since I've been reborn, I might as well do something to make my enemies unhappy, right? Shinjingza had no idea what I was thinking. I loved him so much and cared deeply about his future. Knowing that I would follow his words without any regrets, he instructed me, "From now on, you need to clarify every rumor out there one by one. You must let everyone know that Zhong Tian and I are just like siblings." "Are you really just like siblings?" "As far as I know, you two have no blood relation at all," I retorted, seeing my sarcastic smile. Shinjingza found it irritating and continued with displeasure, "If I had any other thoughts about Zhong Tian, why would I have married you? In my past life, he brainwashed me like this, and I foolishly believed him." Hearing his familiar explanation now, I couldn't help but laugh. Again, Shinjingza was somewhat annoyed by my laughter. "Xiangwan, now is not the time to throw a tantrum or be jealous. It's all because you didn't listen that I ended up in this situation. I'm warning you, behave yourself. If you keep being so clueless, I'll divorce you." Divorce was something I desperately wanted, so I immediately nodded. "Fine, let's get a divorce. Let's go right now." Shinjingza hadn't expected me to say that, and his expression stiffened. "What are you messing around for?" "I'm not messing around. Rather than sharing a husband with another woman, I'd rather get a clean divorce. Let's go our separate ways and each find our own future." Hearing me say this, Shinjingza was furious. "What do you mean, Li Xiangwan? Ours is a military marriage. not something that can be casually divorced. So what? Are you going to wrong yourself for a lifetime? Are you sure you want to wrong your good little sister into being a mistress forever? The term mistress didn't exist back then. Shinjingza was taken aback. What mistress? What is a mistress? Shinjingza pressed me for answers. But of course I wouldn't explain in detail. Shinjingza, if you want me to trust you, from now on you are not allowed to have any contact with Zhong Tian. Can you do that? To my surprise, Shinjingza actually agreed. From now on, I'll leave everything about Zhong Tian to you. I promise I won't contact her privately anymore. This change hadn't happened in my previous life. It was expected that Shinjingza would choose to back down after weighing the pros and cons for the sake of his career advancement, but Zhong Tian wasn't as perceptive as he was. I was sure that once she couldn't see Shinjingza, she would soon stir up trouble, and I was looking forward to Zhong Tian making her move. After all, since I had been reborn, I had to at least get back some of the grievances and pain I had suffered in my previous life, right? Zhong Tian had no idea that Shinjingza had already decided to keep his distance from her for the sake of his political career. She continued to pretend to be sick in the hospital, playing the victim like she did in her past life, waiting for Shinjingza to visit her. After waiting for several days without Shinjingza coming to see her, Zhong Tian couldn't hold back anymore. She asked countless people to pass along messages, exaggerating her condition, in an attempt to get Shinjingza to visit her. When Shinjingza heard that Zhong Tian had coughed up blood, he was extremely anxious. However, his superior had given him strict orders, and he dared not disobey, so he eventually came to find me. Zhong Tian was fully expecting Shinjingza to visit her, but instead, I showed up, not seeing the Shinjingza she longed for day and night, and after confirming there was no one else around, Zhong Tian asked me viciously, "What are you doing here?" "Come to see you. Let's see how you stir up trouble." I walked around the ward. "Didn't you say you were dying? Aren't you looking perfectly fine with rosy lips and fair skin?" Zhong Tian, don't you think this kind of trick is too outdated? Isn't that tactic too cliché? Exposed by me. Zhong Tian stopped pretending. Li Xiangwan, doesn't it feel terrible to lose a child? Your child was killed by me, but brother Jingza doesn't care about you. He only believes me. For my sake, he has no choice but to wrong you, his legitimate wife. You must be feeling awful inside, right? But brother Jingza doesn't pity you. He only trusts me. For me, he has no choice but to make you, his rightful wife, suffer. You must be feeling terrible inside, right? You must be feeling awful inside, right? You're overthinking it, I said with a calm smile. As long as I can keep Shinjingza away from you, that disgusting woman, what does losing a child matter? Zhong Tian, you probably don't know, but Shinjingza won't come to see you anymore. Zhong Tian was stunned. What do you mean? Exactly what it sounds like. Word on the street is that you and Shinjingza are having an affair. To protect his reputation, Shinjingza is going to start keeping his distance from you. Zhong Tian was shocked by my words. Li Xiangwan, what have you done? Don't rush, I'll explain it to you slowly. I walked over to the hospital bed and looked down at Zhong Tian. Zhong Tian, I know your dirty intentions. You just want to kill the child in my womb, break up me and Shinjingza, and become Shinjingza's other half, don't you? So I took the initiative to help you out. To be honest, I was the one who deliberately killed the child in my womb. I was also the one who spread the rumor about having an affair with Shinjingza. How is that possible? Are you crazy? Zhong Tian knew how much I cherished the child in my womb, how much I loved Shinjingza, and how much I cared about his reputation. Now I had taken the initiative to kill the bastard child and ruin Shinjingza's reputation. Zhong Tian found it unimaginable and was also furious beyond belief. She knew how severe the consequences of my actions would be for her and Shinjingza. You shameless woman, using your own flesh and blood to scheme against me. How vicious your heart is. Compared to you, I'm just a novice. Zhong Tian, starting from now, I'm going to make you experience the pain I once endured. Oh, really? Let's see who comes out on top. With that, Zhong Tian raised her hand and viciously slapped herself twice on the face. 2 loud smacks echoed, and both sides of Zhong Tian's face immediately swelled up high. Zhong Tian was truly ruthless with herself. Blood had already seeped from the corners of her mouth, licking the crimson blood with her tongue. Zhong Tian glared at me venomously and shouted loudly, Li Xiangwan is hitting someone. Help. With that, she jumped off the bed and ran barefoot toward the door, but just as Zhong Tian had taken 2 steps forward, she found herself unable to move an inch from behind. I grabbed Zhong Tian by the hair and yanked her back with all my strength. Just as Zhong Tian had slapped herself to frame me, I used every ounce of my strength to pull her hair. I could see the twisted, pained expression on Zhong Tiantian's face amid her screams. I grabbed her by the hair and slammed her head hard against the wall, one blow after another. Zhong Tiantian never expected me to fight back. After all, I used to be a pushover, gentle, kind-hearted, and afraid of trouble. My brutal, forceful blows made Zhong Tiantian scream, and soon she passed out from the pain. Looking at Zhong Tiantian lying unconscious on the ground, I stepped out, rubbed my eyes a few times, and soon tears streamed down my face. The nurse, hearing the noise in the hallway, hurried over. Seeing my tear-streaked, miserable expression, she stopped and asked me, "Comrade, what's wrong? Who bullied you?" The nurses who came over were all familiar faces. During my hospitalization after the miscarriage, I had earned the sympathy of many doctors and nurses. Plus, since Zhong Tiantian wasn't actually sick and had been occupying a hospital bed pretending to be ill, the doctors and nurses were all quite fed up with her. I sobbed uncontrollably. "I'm doomed. I'm definitely doomed. Zhong Tiantian." She slapped herself to frame me, and now she's pretending to faint on the ground. Slapping herself and pretending to faint. The nurses exchanged glances. Zhong Tiantian had a bad character, throwing her weight around the hospital with Shen Jing's backing. The nurses were already annoyed by her condescending attitude, and knowing she was the one who interfered in my marriage with Shen Jing's made them even more contemptuous of her. I continued crying. "What am I going to do? What am I supposed to do? I can't clear my name even if I jumped into the Yellow River. If Shen Jing's finds out, he'll definitely blame me. I'm doomed." "That's too much, Comrade. Don't be afraid, we'll testify for you." Several nurses immediately took my side. "Thank you, but she's still lying on the ground pretending to be unconscious. How should we handle this?" "We'll go in with you to take a look." Accompanied by several nurses, I returned to the ward, where Zhong Tiantian lay unconscious on the floor. The nurses looked at her with disgust. "Enough, stop pretending, get up." The unconscious Zhong Tiantian naturally didn't respond. Wiping away my tears, I walked over, crouched down, and reached out to touch her. "Stop pretending, get up now." As I touched Zhong Tiantian, I pressed the tip of a needle I was holding in my hand forcefully into her waist. It was a large sewing needle I had specifically brought to deal with Zhong Tiantian, a good 6 or 7 centimeters long. The effect of having such a long sewing needle stabbed into the flesh was predictable. The unconscious Zhong Tiantian let out a sharp cry of pain. As Zhong Tiantian opened her eyes, I quickly and deftly pulled out the sewing needle and hid it in my sleeve. The sharp pain jolted Zhong Tiantian upright, and her eyes met the malicious smile in mine, fueled by hatred and anger. Zhong Tiantian raised her hand without a second thought and slapped me. The nurse beside her grabbed Zhong Tiantian's hand. "What are you, crazy?" Seeing this, the other nurses rushed over and pinned Zhong Tiantian down. Unable to move, held down by others, Zhong Tiantian was stunned. Usually shrewd and calculating, after a moment of shock, she immediately resumed her pitiful, delicate appearance. She complained to the nurses holding her down. "Li Xiangwan hit me." She slapped my face, grabbed my hair, and slammed it against the wall. "She deliberately injured me. I'm calling the police to have her arrested." Zhong Tiantian thought that telling the truth would win her support, but the nurses only looked at her with contempt. "Enough, Comrade Zhong, stop pretending. We know you're putting on a show to frame Comrade. Such thinking is unacceptable and must be corrected immediately." "I'm not pretending, the headache was unbearable, my face hurt, and of course the spot on my waist where I had pricked myself with the needle ached too." Zhong Tiantian tried to explain desperately, but no one believed her. The nurses all sided with me. "Comrade, don't be afraid, we will definitely testify for you. This is all a show." Zhong Tiantian staged herself. Zhong Tiantian's head really hurt, and her face hurt too, but no one believed her. A few nurses clamored to call the police and even brought out Zhong Tiantian's ridiculous medical record. "You're faking illness to occupy a hospital bed, and we will definitely report it truthfully." Zhong Tiantian softened. She could manipulate Shen Jingzi only because he cared for and liked her. Others were not her parents or relatives, so naturally, they wouldn't indulge her, whether it was good or bad. Bystanders could see it clearly. Zhong Tiantian herself knew that making a big scene would have consequences against her, so she gritted her teeth and swallowed her pride. Surrounded by nurses as I was led out, I glanced back at Zhong Tiantian and flashed a provocative smile. "Zhong Tiantian, this is just the beginning, the best is yet to come." After giving Zhong Tiantian a small taste of her own medicine, I returned home in high spirits. To my surprise, the ever-busy Shen Jingzi was actually at home for once. He had bought my favorite tangerines and candies, and as soon as he saw me, he asked about Zhong Tiantian. "How is Tiantian doing? He sure cares a lot." If it weren't for the fear of hindering his promotion, Shin Jingze would have probably rushed to the hospital to see Zhong Tian by now, right? I replied with a blank expression. She's doing just fine, after all. She still has the energy to slander and frame me. What do you mean? Shin Jingze was taken aback. I went to see Zhong Tian as you instructed, and even bought some fruit. But she didn't appreciate it. She threw away the fruit and slapped herself. She pretended to faint and framed me. If the nurses at the hospital hadn't witnessed it with their own eyes at the door, I would have been wronged by her today. How is that possible? Shin Jingze's face showed disbelief. If you don't believe me, you can go to the hospital and ask the nurses. It wasn't just one person who saw her frame me. It was four. Shin Jingze was unusually silent. Why would she frame you? You don't know. I looked at Shin Jingze and asked back. Shin Jingze shook his head. I sneered. Zhong Tian said I'm not worthy of being your wife, and that she is the one who deserves to be. Shin Jingze's expression had been serious, but when he heard this, his face changed. Here we go again. Li Xiangwan, why do you never learn? How many times have I told you? Tang Tang and I have a sibling-like bond. There's absolutely no way between her and me. But you two aren't actually siblings, are you? No matter what, I have a clear conscience. Shin Jingze even warned me. Behave yourself and don't cause me any trouble. Seeming to realize his tone was too harsh with me, he softened his voice. Xiangwan, be good and listen. What happened with the child was my fault. I apologize. We can still have children in the future. He thought allowing me to bear his child was a great favor, little knowing that I had long since become a completely different person inside. I will never have a child for Shin Jingze. He can keep dreaming. Zhong Tian suffered a real concussion after I hit her and was hospitalized for several days. During these days, she didn't stop causing trouble, making several phone calls to Shin Jingze from the hospital phone. She also had someone deliver a letter to Shin Jingze for her. After failing to get a response from Shin Jingze, Zhong Tian panicked. She was discharged from the hospital and came to find Shin Jingze in person. Zhong Tian knocked on the door of my and Shin Jingze's place, on the verge of tears, only to see Shin Jingze having lunch with me. Seeing Shin Jingze put a piece of spare rib into my bowl, Zhong Tian found it hard to believe. She sobbed, Brother Jingze, are you not going to take care of me anymore? Looking at Zhong Tian's swollen face and her sickly, delicate appearance, how could Shin Jingze not be moved? Tian, how could I ever abandon you? I've just been too busy lately. Zhong Tian cried as she threw herself into Shin Jingze's arms. I thought you didn't want me anymore, Brother Jingze. I was so scared that you would abandon me. You promised my parents you'd take care of me. Boo-hoo. Zhong Tian's parents had a favor over Shin Jingze, and when her parents were mentioned, a look of guilt flashed across Shin Jingze's face. I thought Zhong Tian would take the chance to tattle on me for hitting her and drive a wedge between Shin Jingze and me, but it turned out she had gotten smarter. She didn't even mention a word about me disciplining her at the hospital. Instead, she just reminisced and rekindled her bond with Shin Jingze. And finally, right in front of him, she tearfully apologized to me. Sister-in-law, I'm sorry, my presence has put you in a difficult position. Don't worry, once I recover, I'll transfer to another place. I'm leaving. Sister-in-law, you don't have to worry about me affecting your relationship with Brother Jingze anymore. After saying that, Zhong Tian actually knelt in front of me and kept kowtowing, begging for my forgiveness. I have to admit that Zhong Tian's tactic of retreating to advance was indeed effective. Shin Jingze was extremely heartbroken and immediately went over to help her up. Your sister-in-law is not that petty. Tian, we're not going anywhere. We'll stay right here so I can take care of you. Zhong Tian stood up with Shin Jingze's help, as she emotionally recounted the past. I couldn't bear to listen anymore and walked away. I knew very well that Zhong Tian had learned to behave, and I also knew she couldn't rush to tattle on me. She was retreating to advance, making Shin Jingze feel sorry for her, and then she would use the same old tricks against me again. I wandered outside for a few hours, and when I returned, Zhong Tian was gone. Shin Jingze was sitting alone in the living room. When he saw me come back, he said, Xiangwan, let's talk. Sure, I nodded and walked over to sit across from him. What do you want to talk about? About Tian? Shin Jingze took my hand and said, Xiangwan, my feelings for Tian are truly just like those of a brother and sister. You know, her parents were kind to me. I have no way to repay them, and they only have Tian as their daughter. So the only way I can repay them is through Tian. Fine, I won't stop you from repaying a debt of gratitude. You don't need to notify me specifically about what you want to do with Zhong Tian. I don't care. Xiangwan, don't say that out of anger. I know you've misunderstood, thinking that Tian and I have some improper relationship. I swear, I truly only see Tian as a sister. The only person I want to spend the rest of my life with is you. In my past life, hearing such a heartfelt confession would have made me fall for it, foolishly devoting myself to him without regret. Unfortunately, I am no longer that foolishly Xiongwan from my past life, whose heart was filled only with love. I pulled my hand away. I understand what you mean. Is there anything else? Shen Jingzhe was surprised to see that I was not moved by his deep affection. He took my hand in his again and said earnestly, Xiongwan, I'm about to go on a mission and won't be back for a while. While I'm away, you need to get along well with Tian Tian. Tian Tian has agreed to listen to you from now on. You must fulfill your duty as her sister-in-law. I'm entrusting Tian Tian to you. Wait for me to come back. This had a somewhat entrusting tone to it. I raised an eyebrow. Sure. I'll take good care of your dear sister Tian Tian. Shen Jingzhe led the team on a mission to the south. Before leaving, he repeatedly urged Zhong Tian Tian and me to get along harmoniously. Zhong Tian Tian and I nodded in tacit agreement. Getting along harmoniously was impossible. I knew Zhong Tian Tian wouldn't let things go, and neither would I. After Shen Jingzhe returned from this mission, Zhong Tian Tian and I would definitely settle the score. Either she dies or I do. The determination was clear in the gaze Zhong Tian Tian and I exchanged. On the first day Shen Jingzhe left, Zhong Tian Tian and I got along harmoniously. She took the initiative to call me sister-in-law and offered to help me tidy up the house and cook. On the second day Shen Jingzhe left, Zhong Tian Tian bought me a dress and a pair of shoes, and even treated me to a movie. She warmly took my arm, calling me sister-in-law at every turn, letting everyone else in the compound witness the closeness between us. We went everywhere together, supporting each other, like a pair of true sisters-in-law getting along intimately, as if the earlier unpleasantness had never happened. On the 10th day after Shen Jingzhe left, early in the morning, Zhong Tian Tian knocked on my door, bringing me breakfast. Sister-in-law, I had the day off today. How about we go for a spring outing by the river? Sure, I gladly agreed. Zhong Tian Tian had already prepared lunch and snacks, and warmly took my arm as we walked out the gate. When we ran into people we knew, Zhong Tian Tian took the initiative to greet them, telling them she was going for a spring outing by the river with me. After telling about a dozen people along the way, Zhong Tian Tian and I grabbed some food, hopped on the old-fashioned bicycle, and headed straight for the small river. Just as we were about to arrive, I said I had a stomachache and needed to find a place to relieve myself, so I stepped away for a while. By the time I reached the riverbank again, Zhong Tian Tian had already been waiting there for over an hour. Her face was etched with impatience, pacing back and forth in agitation, her eyes filled with venom. Muttering under her breath, I cleared my throat and said, Tian Tian, sorry to keep you waiting. The moment she saw me, Zhong Tian Tian immediately put on a different expression, as if the venom I had just seen was a trick of my eyes. Sister-in-law, the scenery here is so beautiful. I borrowed a camera. Let me take a few photos of you. I gladly agreed, standing by the river as Zhong Tian Tian snapped a few pictures of me several times. Zhong Tian Tian let out cheerful laughter and lunged toward me, but I nimbly dodged her. While standing by the river I laughed heartily, but Zhong Tiantian's laughter grew colder and colder. Later, after several failed attempts to pounce on me, Zhong Tian Tian took the initiative to lay out the picnic mat and set out the food. She spread the picnic mat by the river, chose the side facing the water, and left the side near the river for me to sit on. I'm starving, sister-in-law, come and eat. Zhong Tian Tian enthusiastically handed me the food, but I didn't take it. Instead, I stared straight at Zhong Tian Tian and said, come on, what's your real motive? What motive could I have? Zhong Tian Tian put on a flattering smile, and I lowered my voice. I knew you were just looking for a chance to push me into the river, then jump in yourself to pretend I had dragged you down. Since that didn't work, you're trying this trick again. Let me guess what you're planning to do. I looked at Zhong Tiantian's pale face. You put something in the food to set me up. Zhong Tian Tian, do you think I'm that stupid? After knowing you're a venomous snake, would I still let my guard down around you? So you found me out. I thought I could fool you for a few more days. I didn't expect you to be this clever. With her mask torn off, Zhong Tian Tian stopped pretending. Li Xiongwan, since you already know, I won't hide it from you anymore. Today is the day you die. After throwing out these words, she lunged at me. I was sitting with my back to the river, and Zhong Tian Tian lunged at me, causing us both to fall into the water. This was the same trick Zhong Tian Tian had used to set me up in my past life. In my past life, Zhong Tian Tian had lured me to the riverbank, then pushed me into the water, fabricating a murder case where I supposedly wanted her dead. I can swim, but Zhong Tian Tian cannot. Not long after falling into the river, people arranged by Zhong Tian Tian came to rescue her. Then she helped Zhong Tian Tian accuse me of trying to kill her. Everyone believed Zhong Tian Tian, and Shin Jingze also believed her words, so he chose to uphold justice and sent me to prison in this lifetime. Zhong Tian framed me a full 30 years earlier than in my previous life. If it were the Li Xiongwan from her past life, she would definitely be dead for sure, but I am not the Li Xiongwan from that past life. When Zhong Tian invited me to the river, I already knew what she was up to. I know Zhong Tian has found witnesses to frame me, so I'll indulge her suicidal intentions. As I fell into the river, I immediately grabbed Zhong Tian's head and pushed it underwater, letting her drink her fill all at once. Zhong Tian gulped down the drink until her eyes rolled back, and as she fell into unconsciousness, I grabbed her hair and slammed her head against the jagged rocks by the riverbank. One blow after another, Zhong Tian's pretty face was covered in blood, but it still wasn't enough. In my past life, I had my uterus removed and could never bear children. How could I ever forget such pain since I've been given a second chance? Zhong Tian must also experience what it's like to lose her uterus. The steel rod I had prepared by the river pierced through Zhong Tian's lower body. I watched as the blood slowly stained the river red. Then, satisfied, I dragged Zhong Tian by her hair toward the shore, screaming for help at the top of my lungs. The witness Zhong Tian had found arrived just in time, and she was rushed to the hospital. Lying on the ground by the river, a cold smirk curled at the corner of my mouth. Now it was time to see Shin Jingze's performance. Shin Jingze didn't return until a week later. Upon hearing the devastating news of Zhong Tian's injury, he rushed to the hospital immediately. Zhong Tian had been rescued, but like me in my past life, she had lost the chance to become a mother. Even worse than my past life, she was disfigured, her face covered in pitted scars. Zhong Tian grabbed Shin Jingze and burst into tears, crying to him about how I had harmed her. Zhong Tian had been waiting for this day for a long time, but the outcome was not what she had expected. She was disfigured, while I remained unscathed. When Zhong Tian woke up, it would be a lie to say she had no regrets. She couldn't understand why I had fought back so fiercely. She couldn't figure out how she had gone from being the perpetrator to the victim. At this point, Zhong Tian knew she had no other way out. She was determined to pin the blame on me and make me pay the price. She was set on exploiting Shin Jingze's sense of gratitude to make him take responsibility for her. Sure enough, upon hearing that I was the one who caused Zhong Tian to end up like this, Shin Jingze was furious. Just like in the previous life, Zhong Tian found several capable accomplices and witnesses. The accomplices and witnesses spoke in unison, backing up Zhong Tian's accusations against me, and they made it sound quite convincing. They claimed that after Shin Jingze left, I had been bullying Zhong Tian all along. They said Zhong Tian bought me clothes and shoes to please me, took the initiative to do housework, and even invited me on an outing to try to change my attitude toward her. They never expected that I would be so deranged as to lay a vicious hand on Zhong Tian. They saw with their own eyes as I pushed Zhong Tian into the water. With both evidence and witnesses present, I was indeed the culprit. Just like in my previous life, there was only one path left: prison. Shin Jingze was furious at my viciousness and shamelessness. He felt sorry for Zhong Tian's current situation and promised her that he would give her an explanation. Meanwhile, I stayed at home, waiting for Shin Jingze's thunderous wrath. In the days I spent waiting for Shin Jingze to come and confront me, I had already packed my luggage. In my spare time, I sold most of the furniture in the house, even the bicycle. I sewed all the money into my clothes. I had already made a detailed plan, just waiting to part ways with Shin Jingze for good. The door was kicked open with force, and Shin Jingze stormed in. He grabbed me by the collar and lifted me up. Li Xiongwan, why did you do this? I pried Shin Jingze's fingers off me. Shin Jingze, if I told you that I had nothing to do with this, and it was all Zhong Tian's scheme, would you believe me? Bullshit. Shin Jingze naturally didn't believe me, so furious that he even cursed. Li Xiongwan, Tian can't swim, but you can. Would someone who can't swim be stupid enough to scheme against someone who can? Just like in the previous life, Shin Jingze firmly believed that Zhong Tian wouldn't take such a risk. He angrily questioned me. Besides, if Tian really set you up, would she end up disfigured and unable to have children for life? I sneered. That's easy to explain. She messed up her own scheme. Even now, you're still stubbornly refusing to see reason. Li Xiongwan, do you think I have to protect you, that I have to unconditionally stand by you? Do you even realize what you're doing is a crime? This could land you in jail. Of course I know, but none of this is my fault. Zhong Tian brought it on herself. You still refuse to repent. Li Xiongwan, you're more vicious and shameless than I imagined, and more insane too. Since you're so determined to do evil, don't blame me for what comes next. I won't let you off the hook this time. Fine, I'll be waiting. It was the same outcome in my past life, and I had long stopped expecting anything different. Yet, deep down, it still stung. It hurt terribly. So, how do you want to punish me, Shinjingza? Seeing my indifferent attitude, Shinjingza kicked the sofa. Go to the hospital first and sincerely apologize to Tian Tian. I won't apologize. Then just wait to go to jail. I'm telling you, Li Xiongwan, I will never have a woman as insane as you as my wife. If you go to jail, I will divorce you. Fine, couldn't ask for more. I took out the divorce agreement I had prepared long ago. Sign it. Let's go get divorced now. Shinjingza looked at the divorce agreement, then at me. You were prepared for this. You knew I would bring up divorce. Why, no reason. Just sign it. Shinjingza, who had never been bested by me before, was furious. He took the pen I handed him, signed the divorce agreement, and threw it at me. You got what you wanted. I bent down to pick up the divorce agreement, and when I straightened up, Shinjingza had already strode away. As I reached the door, she didn't forget to threaten me. Just you wait, the police will be coming for you soon. I let out a cold laugh, grabbed the divorce agreement, and headed straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau. An hour later, I walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau holding 2 divorce certificates. The divorce went so smoothly that I breathed a sigh of relief. Now, the next thing to wait for was the police questioning. I wasn't afraid of the police questioning at all. It wasn't just Zhong Tian who could find witnesses to testify against me. Having lived a lifetime, I had my own, and they were even more thorough than what Zhong Tian had prepared. The police didn't come to me. Instead, I took the initiative to bring evidence to the police station and filed a report. My evidence was well prepared, knowing that I could swim. Zhong Tian had prepared food laced with sleeping pills for me. Her original intention was to make me fall unconscious and then drown in the river. She just didn't expect me to see through her plan, so Zhong Tian changed her plan on the spot. She intended to stage an accident where I pushed her into the water, even though she couldn't swim. Knowing Zhong Tian's intentions, I had found several witnesses in advance. They were nurses from the hospital, who immediately sent the food laced with sleeping pills by Zhong Tian for testing. They witnessed with their own eyes Zhong Tian pushing me into the river, and also confirmed that Zhong Tian had bought a sufficient amount of sleeping pills herself. As for why Zhong Tian suffered such severe injuries while trying to harm others, it was because she couldn't swim, and her luck was extremely bad. She accidentally hit a hard rock, disfiguring her face, and then a piece of rebar floating in the river unfortunately pierced her uterus. Stones and steel bars cannot speak, nor are there any traceable fingerprints to prove that someone harmed her. Zhong Tian had no choice but to swallow this bitter loss. I provided evidence to accuse Zhong Tian of the crime, and the evidence of her criminal acts was conclusive. Because she had lost her uterus and was physically weak, the police were waiting for her to recover before approving her arrest. After divorcing Shinjingza, I had no ties left and immediately bought a train ticket south without hesitation. Punishing Zhong Tian was my goal, but it was not the ultimate goal. As detestable as Zhong Tian was, Shinjingza was not without blame. It was not enough for me to just deal with Zhong Tian. Knowing how things would unfold, I understood that Shinjingza would soon face a dire fate. Without the help of my past life self, he is going to suffer terribly from now on. I am waiting for Shinjingza to get his comeuppance. After leaving, I devoted myself entirely to building my career. Knowing the future direction of events helped me a great deal. I successfully worked my way up from the bottom, achieving impressive results in less than 5 years. As the spring breeze of reform and opening up swept across the land, I became one of the first to dive in and reap the benefits. The company I founded expanded rapidly, and over a decade later, I became the first female richest person with the highest assets. With my money and the people I gathered, I opened branches all over the country and engaged in charity work everywhere. I never expected to run into Shinjingza while doing charity work in Jiangqing. Over a decade had passed, and Shinjingza had gone from a dashing military officer to a disabled man in a wheelchair. I was speaking on stage while he watched me from his wheelchair in the audience. When our eyes met, I looked composed, but he was utterly stunned. I saw Shinjingza's lips move, though I couldn't hear his voice. I could read what he was saying. It was clearly the name Shengwan. After donating a large sum of money, I was about to leave in my car when Shinjingza rolled his wheelchair in front of it to stop me. Shengwan, do you have any idea how long I've been looking for you? I asked him indifferently. What do you want from me? I never intended to let you go to jail, nor did I plan to divorce you. I was just angry. I tried to persuade Zhong Tian to drop the charges against you, but by the time I convinced her, you had already left. Was this a belated apology and admission of guilt? Even if it was, why should I accept his apology and Admission of guilt. Seeing me staring coldly at him without a word, Shen Jing's face darkened. He moved his lips. Xiangwan, I didn't know Zhong Tian could be so despicable and shameless. I was deceived by her all along, which is why I acted this way. Stop it, I don't care. After all, we're already divorced. I'm not interested in your affairs. I stared at Shen Jingzi, enunciating each word. Can you stop blocking my car? I'm in a hurry. I need to go see my husband and my son. Today is our 6th wedding anniversary. You're married, you actually got married and have a child. Shen Jing's face turned pale as he moved his wheelchair. My driver started the engine, and as the car began to move, Shen Jingzi suddenly spoke up. Xiangwan, I had a dream. In the dream, you loved me deeply and never abandoned me. We had a son, is that so? I rolled down the window and looked at Shen Jingzi with a smile. Then there must be other things in that dream, right? Like how you turned a blind eye to me for Zhong Tian, like how you, because of Zhong Tian sent me to prison. What about you and your ungrateful son, who have always sided with Zhong Tian like you, bullying me? Shen Jing's face was as pale as snow, while I smiled brightly. Is the you in my dreams in mortal danger because of your meritorious service? It was Zhong Tian who knelt and begged a renowned doctor to save you from the clutches of the king of hell, snatched it back, and then in the dream, you were rapidly promoted and soared straight up. In the dream, you regarded Zhong Tian as a lifesaver and thanked her for a lifetime, right? How do you know? Shen Jingzi asked me urgently. You don't need to know how I know, but I want to tell you something. Do you know why? After all your achievements in this life, you've been sitting in a wheelchair without ever standing up. It's because I didn't run hundreds of miles to kneel and beg medical experts to save you, like I did in the dream, so you ended up crippled. So it was you who saved me in the past life, not Zhong Tian. No wonder, I sneered. Shen Jingzi, did you dream that I got a terminal illness and died miserably in prison? What were you thinking? Shen Jingzi, are you relieved? After all, only with my death can you marry your Zhong Tian with a clear conscience. No, it's not like that. I didn't know you would die. I thought you were faking illness. By the time I rushed back, you were already. I regret it so much. Is this a belated regret? But what good does it do me? Shen Jingzi murmured. Xiangwan, I know it was all Zhong Tian's fault. I didn't let her off. I punished Zhong Tian. She's just been released now. She's in a terrible state that puts my mind at ease. I rolled up the car window and instructed the driver. Drive. The car drove away, and Shen Jingzi in the wheelchair grew farther and farther from me. Seeing Jingzi's current state, I finally let out a sigh of relief. In this life, I have no regrets. The car sped off. The mobile phone placed beside me rang with an incoming call. It was from my current husband. I answered, and his gentle voice came through. Xiangwan, your son and I are waiting for you. Okay, I'll be right back. No one can live in memories forever. Shen Jingzi has become the past. Now, I have a loving husband and an adorable son in this life. I will no longer rely on men or trust them. I will be my own queen. Story 2. I slept with my sickly and deranged stepbrother and fled overnight. I was living a great life abroad until my mom feigned illness and tricked me into coming back home. The boy now had cold eyes and called me obediently, sister, later, so quickly let your guard down. He curled his lips into a light smile, his eyes darkening. Or, are you ready to be killed by me, sister? Upon learning that my mom had been faking her illness, my world seemed to collapse. I pinched the bridge of my nose, quite speechless. You're going to get me killed like this? My mom didn't believe me. She sneered. If I didn't fake being sick to trick you, were you planning to die abroad for the rest of your life? Never come back? That was exactly what I'd planned. Gritting my teeth, I grabbed my suitcase and quickly stood up. If I didn't leave soon, I was afraid I'd run into Daniel. Alyssa, I just don't get it. What on earth did your brother do to offend you? Are you going to never have anything to do with him for the rest of your life? I had a gloomy face. He's not my brother. There's no way a normal brother would kiss his sister on the lips. Only Daniel, that psycho. I coldly opened the door. Suddenly, I crashed into a broad chest outside the door. Daniel stood upright, his eyes lowered. He looked like nothing had happened. Sister, are you okay? 3 years had passed. The boy now had cold eyes and called me obediently, sister, so pure, so well-behaved. My mom looked at him with pity. Alyssa, look at how your brother is. We're family, can't you two just sit down and talk things out? At first, I did want to talk to Daniel, but who knew he was the one who really wanted to talk? I was momentarily speechless. It's not her fault. Daniel turned his face away and said softly, I was wrong and made my sister angry. I know I was wrong, sister. When I was 15, my mom and Daniel's uncle formed a new family. Daniel was 3 months younger than me and called me sweetly sister, so well behaved. That was the first impression. Daniel left on me, but that very night, I knew I'd been terribly wrong. No one can take my dad away, Daniel whispered in my ear when no one else was around. Do you know what will happen if you mess with me, Alyssa? What a joke. At that time, Daniel was half a head shorter than me. I sneered and grabbed his collar, forcing him to look me in the eye. A wolf in sheep's clothing with a baby face. Is that how you call me, Alyssa? Such an impudent brat. The atmosphere grew increasingly tense until my mom called out, dinner's ready. What are you two standing there for? Come and eat, we said in unison. Nothing, Daniel sneered and threatened. Let's wait and see, Alyssa, bring it on. I'm not afraid, I sneered back. That night, a rat showed up out of nowhere in my neat and tidy room. I chased the rat around the room, and it was scurrying and squeaking everywhere. The next morning there was a dead rat and a snake in Daniel's room. The corridor was empty. Thanks for the gift, sister, Daniel held the snake by its vital part, his reaction calm. Sister, do you like snake soup? It was the first time he'd called me sister in private. I was stunned. With a click, the snake's head drooped limply. Daniel still had that faint smile on his face, as if he was waiting to hear me scream. Guys, what do you do when you meet a psycho? Of course, you have to be even more psycho not to be outdone. I took out a small knife and gouged out one of the snake's eyes. I threw it at Daniel, a belated welcome gift for you. After all, he was young. Daniel's face turned a bit paler, but he still forced himself to say, thank you, sister. From then on, the years-long feud between me and Daniel began. At that time, I was confident of victory. I didn't know yet how completely I'd be defeated in the game of being a psycho. Damn it, did he know he was wrong? He knew nothing. That sister made me tremble with fear. Oh, your brother has already admitted his mistake. We're family, so let's not be so divided. My mom made the decision. Daniel, take your sister's passport. A girl like you, always running around outside. Do you know how worried we've been about you these 3 years? I froze. My mom continued to scold me, annoyed. This time it was just a bout of gastroenteritis. What if I really get stomach cancer next time? What if you can't make it back in time and I die without seeing you one last time? She choked up a bit as she said this. My heart softened. I immediately surrendered. Fine. Fine, I'll listen to you. I won't leave. My mom immediately beamed with joy. Oh my God, I agreed too soon. Just then, Daniel reached out to take my luggage. When our fingertips touched, he looked calm. I averted my eyes and looked down, but I couldn't help looking at his waist inappropriately. I remembered how strong he was there, strong enough to keep going and going. I couldn't help shuddering. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Daniel looked innocent. Sister, he emphasized the last syllable on purpose. I forced myself to say, it's cold. It was winter, and there was a light drizzle. The damp cold seeped into my bones. Daniel's expression was calm. Oh, before I went abroad, I had a huge fight with Daniel. Well, to be exact, I beat him up unilaterally. You're such a fucking psycho. Do you even remember what you're supposed to call me? Waking up in his arms, I was naked, with red marks all over my fair skin. It was absurd. I raised my hand, about to slap myself, but Daniel grabbed my wrist, so I took the chance to slap him twice instead. Daniel's cheeks quickly swelled up, and the corners of his eyes were red, but his tone was still obedient. I know, sister, knowing, and he still dared to do it. I couldn't believe it and laughed in anger. Fine, you're crazy enough. I can't handle you. I give up. If I can't beat him, can't I run? That night, I flew abroad overnight, blocked Daniel, and cut off all contact with him until today, when my mom tricked me into coming back home. The ward was filled with the faint smell of disinfectant. Daniel seemed quite calm. He sounded so relaxed and well-behaved, as if that absurd thing had never happened. What did he say again? He said he knew he was wrong. I let out a slight sigh of relief. Maybe it was true. In the evening, my mom asked us to go out and buy dinner. It was raining outside, and there were only a few scattered pedestrians on the road. Walking unhurriedly, Daniel held the umbrella handle so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The umbrella tilted towards me. His left shoulder was completely soaked. I hesitated. You, Daniel, however, kept his eyes straight ahead and said calmly, I really know I was wrong, sister. Forget it. What else could I do? I was drunk that night and let my guard down around him, half asleep, half awake, half resisting, half giving in. I was also at fault. Fine. I paused and tried to sound casual. Let's just act like that thing never happened. No one was allowed to mention it again. We were still siblings. Siblings. Daniel chewed on these two words, very, very slowly, and then gave a faint smile. His voice carried an indescribable tenderness. Okay. Just then, a strong gust of wind blew by, breaking the umbrella handle. Daniel simply let go and instinctively shielded me in his arms. But he didn't have time to cover the scars on his wrists. In front of me, there were scars, big and small, deep and shallow. My heart suddenly ached. Daniel let go of me and stood in the rain, looking lost, like a helpless child who had done something wrong. Sister, this was how Daniel punished himself for his mistakes, from the moment I left until he learned that I was coming back, for a full 3 years. I'm sorry for making you worry, sister, Daniel said in a low voice. I won't do this anymore. He said that he was young and naive back then. He mistook his dependence on me for romantic feelings. He sounded sincere. I really know I was wrong and won't do it again, sister. The light rain pattered down, wetting my clothes. It was bone-chilling cold. My hands were freezing, stiff and red. I patted his shoulder. Let's not talk about it. I couldn't say anything else. Alyssa, I asked myself in my heart, are you even human? If I hadn't been so resolute back then, would he have hurt himself like this? But now, it was too late to say anything. If we keep getting wet, you'll catch a cold, sister. Daniel sounded helpless. I steadied myself and forced out a reply. Okay, let's go, sister. Suddenly, it got dark. Daniel took off his coat and held it over our heads. The distance between us shortened abruptly. I was almost completely in his arms. The cold aura surrounded me. I instinctively wanted to escape. Daniel tilted his head to look at me. One sentence nailed me in place. Sister, will you never forgive me? I think he really knows he's wrong. My best friend Betty analyzed word by word on the phone. You've been his sister for 10 years. Don't you know what kind of person he is? I thought of Daniel when he was a kid. At home, he threw rats into my room and killed snakes with his bare hands. At school, he fought with classmates over a joke and broke someone's bones. Even when Daniel's uncle beat him until he couldn't stand up, he wouldn't admit his mistake. He had nothing to do with the word well-behaved. A person's personality is hard to change, even though you haven't been in direct contact with Daniel. Is it difficult for him to find out about your whereabouts from your mom? He didn't come to find you abroad in these 3 years. Instead, he secretly punished himself. If it wasn't a coincidence, would you have seen those scars? I held my phone in a daze. Scenes flashed through my mind one by one. No, exactly, because it was no. It meant that Daniel really knew he was wrong. He wasn't deliberately using this to make me feel bad or lower my guard. You two are as melodramatic as a Taiwanese idol drama, Betty sighed. If you're really worried, why not test him? Test him? I clenched my phone and hesitated for a while. How? Aren't you just worried that he's faking it? Betty thought for a moment and smiled. It's simple. You fake it too. An opportunity came soon. After getting my mom discharged from the hospital, we returned to our long-lost home. Daniel's uncle suggested a celebration. Our family is finally back together. Alyssa just got back from abroad. She must be missing home-cooked meals. I'll cook some delicious food to celebrate. My mom, the wine lover, readily agreed and clamored for a drink. I've been having such bland food in the hospital these days. I'm starving for a drink. But she had just recovered from gastroenteritis. I sighed and snatched her cup, downing the wine in one go. The white wine was spicy, stinging my throat. My mom was amazed. In ancient times, Mulan joined the army for her father. Now, Alyssa drinks for her mother. Everyone in my family knew that I had a very poor tolerance for alcohol. Why are you drinking so much all of a sudden? My mom was suspicious. Our little Jiang, did you break up with someone abroad? Daniel's uncle and my mom were all ears. Daniel was sitting across from me, his eyes downcast, expression calm. He just paused for a moment while playing with his wine glass. No, nothing like that. I denied it. I'm just happy to be home. I wasn't lying. During countless days and nights, I leaned against the window. Outside, there were high-rise buildings, a bustling nightlife. It was beautiful but not home. When I missed home, I drank. Day after day, my alcohol tolerance increased a bit, but they didn't know. I stared at the silent Daniel and smiled. Daniel, why aren't you drinking? Aren't you happy that I'm back? Daniel didn't drink much. My mom told him to take care of me since I was drunk. I curled up on the bed, closed my eyes, and pretended to be asleep. My temples were throbbing painfully. I had made up my mind. If Daniel did something out of line, it would prove that he was lying to me. Then I'd better leave. If not, then forget it. The room was dim and quiet. It was so long that I thought Daniel had left. When I was really about to drift off to sleep in a daze, a cold aura suddenly approached. Daniel's voice was hoarse, as if coming from far away. Sister, my eyebrows twitched. Daniel bent down, getting even closer to me. I could feel his gaze lingering on my face. After a long while, he merely reached out to tuck the quilt corners in for me. He let out a sigh, his voice even lower. Sister, I'm sorry. Even when he thought I couldn't hear, he was still apologizing. It seemed that he really knew he was wrong. I felt a bit dazed. Daniel wouldn't like me anymore. It should have been something to be happy about. But for some reason, I felt a twinge of sourness in my heart in the following few days. Daniel and I had no problems with each other. Now, he had taken over Daniel's uncle's company, dressed in a suit. He was busy going out early and coming back late, acting with great efficiency, and I stayed at home, no longer having to live in fear like before. We had both moved on. It was good. That day, Betty called, sounding excited. "Alyssa, my brother is back. He wouldn't come back until you did. As soon as I told him you were back, he booked a flight home right away. If you say this isn't for you, I won't believe it even if you beat me to death." Her brother, Edward, was also my ex-boyfriend. I was stunned for quite a while after not hearing this name for a long time. "I'm going to throw a welcome party for my brother tonight. You should come too," Betty said earnestly. "Your messy business is sorted out. Now you can think about your big life events. What about considering my brother, the heartbroken puppy you dumped? How about it?" I blurted out. "No." Crash, something broke on the other end of the phone. Betty stammered. "Alyssa, please think it over. It's me." Edward took a deep breath on the other end. I also gasped. Damn, Betty. So this call had been on speaker from the start. Can't friends meet? Friends, him and me. I almost doubted my ears. When we broke up, it was really ugly. We could be said to have sworn never to have anything to do with each other. "Now," he said, "I won't leave until you come at 8 o'clock tonight." Speaking of which, the reason Edward and I broke up was because of Daniel. We had only been together for 3 months at that time. He suddenly asked me, "Does Daniel like you?" Daniel, my brother. I was struck as if by lightning, but my tone was surprisingly calm. "Impossible. Who told you that?" "Not from hearsay." Edward rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Out of 10 dates we had, we ran into him 9 times. Alyssa, he's 25, not 15. He's a man now. Don't you think it's strange that he's so clingy to you?" My hands were shaking so much that I couldn't even light a cigarette. A sense of inexplicable panic and shame swept over me. "What nonsense are you talking about?" "I'm saying, Daniel likes you," Edward patiently said word by word. "Maybe he hasn't been exposed to other girls during puberty. Alyssa, take him to see a psychologist." He said Daniel was sick. By the time I came to my senses, I had already slapped Edward, making his head turn to the side. I opened my mouth, clearly wanting to apologize, but all I could say was, "Break up." At that time, I just thought Edward was overly possessive, even jealous of my brother. Little did I know that the onlooker sees most of the game. I sighed, gathered my thoughts, and pushed the door open. In the large, dimly lit private room, Betty winked at me when she saw me come in, then turned and ran out. The door of the private room wasn't closed properly. The beats of rock music from the corridor came in, one after another. Edward stubbed out his cigarette. "Long time no see. Long time no see." I smiled awkwardly. The sorry that I had owed for 3 years rolled around in my throat for a long time. Before I finally said it, Edward shook his head and smiled. "It's okay. It's all in the past. I shouldn't have made wild guesses back then. If anyone should say sorry, it should be me." He didn't know what happened between Daniel and me later. How could it really be okay? At this moment, I suddenly realized clearly that some things, once they happened, just happened. I couldn't tell when Daniel's feelings for me had started to change. Clearly, at the beginning, he only called me sister when he wanted to annoy me. Maybe it was in the 3rd year of junior high. Daniel's uncle and my mom flew to Paris for business negotiations. In the huge house, only Daniel and I were left. On a stormy night, the TV news reported that the flight to Paris had lost contact with the control tower and the situation was grim. The living room was unlit. 16-year-old Daniel was huddled in the corner, hugging his head. His face was pale and he was shaking all over. Only then did I learn that Daniel's mom had died in an air crash, also on a stormy day like this. "Daniel, look at me, look at me." I held his face. "They'll be okay." Actually, I was also scared, trembling with fear, but I was the sister. "Don't worry, sister is here, no matter what. Sister will never leave you alone." That night, Daniel had a convulsion and a high fever. I didn't sleep, staying by his bedside to take care of him all night. When dawn broke, Daniel opened his eyes, and I also received Daniel's uncle's message saying they were safe. "Sister." Daniel was incredibly obedient. "I'm hungry." "Okay." My tone softened unconsciously. "Wait for me." Obediently. Later, Daniel brought his good friends home to stay overnight. The 18-year-old boy, with bright eyes like stars, called me sweetly, "Sister." "She's my sister." Daniel, also 18, coldly lifted his eyelids. His voice carried a warning. "Fine, Daniel's sister," the boy muttered dissatisfiedly. "I didn't expect you to be such a sister con." I was holding a fruit plate and couldn't help laughing at these two childish guys. Daniel started to cling to me. I just thought he was childish, until I was 20. I accidentally noticed that my changed underwear always disappeared miraculously. A few hours later, it would reappear, soaking wet, as if it had been washed again. Once again, I leaned against the bathroom door, my face cold. Is it fun? You've watched too many pornos. Daniel, he looked up suddenly, meeting my gaze, in a hoarse voice. He said, "Sister." That was the first time I hit Daniel. He took it silently, apologized, and said he'd never do it again. A hot-headed, impulsive teenager. Fine, I understood. After that, Daniel was as normal as could be. I gradually forgot about it until Edward pointed it out. I was both shocked and angry, so I broke up with him. In a daze, I went home early. The room was pitch black, but there were faint gasps coming from the wardrobe. With a cold face, I suddenly pulled open the wardrobe door. It was Daniel all evening. I was constantly distracted. Edward smiled rather helplessly. "Let's go. I'll take you home." It was late at night, and the temperature dropped sharply. Big snowflakes began to float in the air. I stared blankly at the old parking number plate in front of the passenger seat. It was a random gift I gave years ago. He had kept it all this time. Couldn't bear to throw it away. Edward started the car while smiling. Oops, so embarrassing to show this in front of the owner. It was only a 10-minute drive, but I felt restless the whole time. Edward sighed. I was too childish back then, Alyssa. He was only focused on being jealous and didn't consider my feelings. He said, "Can we at least start as friends? What you said back then was true." I rolled down the window. The cold wind outside was howling. I was extremely sober. Daniel did like me. My tone was calm. Later, we slept together. A screeching sound of brakes rang out. The car stopped right in front of my house. "Thanks for taking me home," I smiled. "You should go back early too." In just over 10 minutes, a thin layer of snow had accumulated on the ground. I suddenly realized that when I was being suspected before, I was shocked and angry, but now, actually saying it out loud wasn't as embarrassing as I'd imagined. "So," Edward's voice was hoarse, "you like him too?" I closed my eyes and didn't answer. At least, I didn't at that time. When did I find out? In a foreign country, during countless lonely late nights, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. I always dreamed of a clean and obedient voice softly calling me, "Sister." I hugged him back. The tips of the boy's ears turned red instantly. The car engine died. Edward turned his head and brushed the snow off my shoulders. "Alyssa, I can wait." I knew what he meant. Daniel and I were not allowed to be together. At least, we couldn't get past my mom and Daniel's uncle. As time passed, I'd have to get married eventually. I smiled. "Don't wait. Not getting married wouldn't kill me." It was very late at night. It seemed that everyone was already asleep. I crept back to my room, closed the door, and reached for the light switch, but my wrist was suddenly grabbed. A searing heat came through. I was stunned. "Daniel, I thought you weren't coming back tonight. I called you so many times, but you didn't answer." "Sister." He emphasized the last word. I took out my phone. Sure enough, there were many missed calls from Daniel. "You said you'd never leave me alone." Those words I said casually on that stormy night to comfort him. He still remembered, but only I remember. Daniel looked up and smiled self-deprecatingly. "Alyssa, you lied to me." Didn't he say he knew he was wrong and wouldn't like me anymore? I was startled, but my tone pretended to be indifferent. "Oh, lied to you. So what?" I shook off his hand. "Did I tempt you?" The silver moon hung high in the sky. Moonlight spilled all over the floor through the French windows. "No." Daniel's expression was blank. "I'm the one who's despicable." I looked at him coldly. "Have I ever been nice to you?" "No." "Not only that, I called him a psycho until my voice was hoarse. I slapped him until my palm was numb. I clearly told him that I didn't like him, that he disgusted me, and that he couldn't like me." In the darkness, Daniel suddenly gave a light laugh. He quickly and accurately grabbed my wrist again, then our palms overlapped. His fingertips intruded, and then our fingers intertwined. Daniel bent down closer to me, his breath warm. He advanced, and I retreated. I stumbled backwards, constantly giving ground until I was pinned against the French window. I had taken off my coat when I entered. The glass of the French window was extremely cold, so cold that my heart trembled. "But I just like you." He tilted his head to look at me, with a mischievous smile. "What should we do, my dear sister? Or, you can kill me." "Let go." I avoided his burning gaze and tried to keep my tone calm. "Daniel, you're crazy again. If you let go now and leave my room, I can pretend nothing happened." "What? Are you scared now?" "Alyssa." He called my name in a low voice, his tone tender. "I thought you were brave enough to come back because you were ready to be dealt with by me. This dealt with clearly wasn't that kind of dealt with." I was both ashamed and angry, and my voice went out of tune. "You're sick. Let me go." Daniel smiled and didn't say anything. Instead, he pinched my chin, forcing Me to look out of the window. Alyssa, look at that man downstairs. He still hasn't left. Downstairs, Edward's Maybach was still parked by the side of the road. A thin layer of snow had accumulated on the car body, and he was leaning against the car door, the cigarette in his fingers flickering. You went to see him without telling me and didn't answer my calls. Daniel looked down at me. Are you getting back together with him? Alyssa, yes, so what? It's none of your business. I was so anxious that I almost went crazy. Daniel laughed. As long as he looks up, he can see us. He could clearly see the entanglement between us. Before he leaves, he'll probably look up at you one last time. Daniel stared at Edward, who was putting out his cigarette. Do you think he'll notice? Daniel smiled mischievously while Edward, unaware, shook the snow off his body and opened the car door. There was actually a faint tendency for him to look up, saying it and being seen with one's own eyes were two completely different things. In a rush, I grabbed Daniel's hand instead. With my other hand, I pushed hard on his chest. Daniel staggered back several steps and fell onto the soft bed, and I lost my support and tumbled into his arms. Daniel raised his hand, his fingertips pressing on the small of my back. There was a half smile on his face. Does this count as throwing yourself into my arms? He was starting to tease me. I was both anxious and angry, trying to get up, but the hair on top of my head got tangled in the button on his chest. I gasped and was pulled back by inertia. Untangle it for me. I gritted my teeth. Daniel chuckled and said unhurriedly, beg me. I'd rather die than beg him. I reached out blindly, trying to untangle it myself, but he grabbed my hand. In my ear was the sound of his heartbeat. Alyssa, I don't believe you when you say you don't like me. The truth was hidden between the lines. I told him I didn't like him, that he disgusted me, and that he also couldn't like me. You said couldn't like me. Alyssa, open your eyes and look at me. Daniel laughed as he showed his scarred wrists. Don't you feel sorry for me, sister? Don't you miss me? Sister, you feel sorry for me, and you miss me. Otherwise, why would you go to the trouble of pretending to be drunk to test me? You're just too afraid to be with me. Alyssa, Daniel said with certainty, one sentence after another. I couldn't fight back at all. I finally looked up, my eyes carefully tracing his eyebrows. I did like him, but so what? Just because we like each other, do we have to be together? I said, I don't want our family to fall apart. Daniel, my dad wasn't good to my mom. She once lost all hope in marriage. It wasn't until she met Daniel's uncle. Daniel's uncle was honest and simple, treating me like his own daughter, and I was about to steal his only son. Was that right? It is. Daniel slowly untangled the hair. I could finally get up, but I was still firmly held in his arms. Alyssa, why are you so sure that our being together will break the family? In the moonlight, his eyes were like water. Without even trying, why are you so prejudiced and rejecting me? The person in front of me inadvertently shook his wrist. The wounds on his wrist also jiggled. He let go of me. His tone aggrieved. Alyssa, it hurts. I wanted to say, it didn't hurt at all. They were all old wounds. I also wanted to say, you're sick, you deserve it. I really wanted to slap him twice, but when my eyes landed on Daniel's trembling eyelashes, my lips trembled. In the end, all I could say was, silly. The temperature in the room kept rising. I woke up late the next day. When I opened my eyes, I met Daniel's gaze. Woke up, why not get up first? I was puzzled. He didn't even call me to get up. Fortunately, at this time, Daniel's uncle and my mom weren't at home. We wouldn't run into them. I wanted to look at you a little longer. You're really sick. Daniel gave two light laughs and gently rubbed my lower back. I immediately became vigilant. No way, why not? He really planned to do it. I pinched the bridge of my nose, quite speechless. It's broad daylight. Can't you just calm down? What if someone heard us? Daniel's expression was calm. Oh, let's go have lunch then. As soon as the door opened, with a pop, countless colorful fragments fluttered down. I quickly took 2 steps to the right, widening the distance from Daniel. My mom and Daniel's uncle were standing at the door, the small party poppers still in their hands. Happy birthday. I froze on the spot. Only then did I remember that today was my birthday. They were at home to prepare a surprise for my birthday, but how could we explain that Daniel came out of my room? It wasn't right for us to be in the same room at our age, was it? The 4 of us stared at each other. The atmosphere was dead silent. It was Daniel who broke the silence first. Dad, Aunt Jiang, I have something to tell you. I looked back at him in surprise. Was he really going to come clean just like that? My mom and Daniel's uncle clearly hadn't reacted yet. They both looked dazed. Daniel suddenly knelt down. They were startled. I like my sister's ex-boyfriend, Daniel said firmly, pausing for a moment after that. Daniel's uncle jerked in shock. What did you say? Daniel's uncle couldn't believe his ears. You like Alyssa's ex-boyfriend? You like men? Yes. Daniel nodded slowly, his expression calm. Daniel's uncle was so out of breath that he couldn't speak. My mom quickly supported him, her eyes darting between me and Daniel. Really, there was still a bit of excitement in her eyes as if she was waiting to hear some juicy gossip. I neither admitted nor denied it. Seems so. Daniel was still kneeling, his back straight, his expression peaceful. He seemed determined not to stand up until Daniel's uncle agreed. The door-in-the-face technique. If someone in a dark room asks to open the skylight, everyone will surely reject it, but if they ask to remove the roof first, people will mediate and be willing to open the skylight. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Only he could come up with such an idea. Daniel's uncle was indeed not very approving. The whole meal was gloomy and tasteless. Why do you have to like Alyssa's ex-boyfriend? Even if you liked Alyssa, it would be better. My hand that was reaching for food stopped. I looked up. Daniel's uncle realized he'd made a slip of the tongue. Alyssa, I'm sorry, I was too impatient. I moved my lips, really wanting him to take back that apology. In the end, I held back. My mom suddenly burst out laughing. Daniel's uncle turned to her. Why are you laughing all of a sudden? My mom put on a serious face. Nothing. But there was unconcealable joy in her eyebrows. Daniel's uncle drank a cup with a bitter face. So worried, so worried. Children's big life events are really worrying, my mom said with a smile. Alyssa, I think it's time to settle your big life event too. Well, I think the son of Aunt Wong is really nice. He just got back from studying abroad. You two must have a lot in common. He's handsome and humorous. He's good in every way. How about meeting him? Good in every way. Daniel smiled. Aunt Jiang, is he better than me? The atmosphere fell into an eerie silence. Daniel's uncle hadn't fully reacted yet, looking completely bewildered. Daniel, you being good is one thing, but there are differences here. My mom cleared her throat and pretended to be serious. There are different standards for a son and for a son-in-law. You can't mix them up. Daniel nodded slightly. The revelation came out of the blue. Aunt Jiang, do you think I'm qualified to be your son-in-law? As soon as he said that, Daniel's uncle spat out a mouthful of wine. Sure enough, nothing could escape my mom's sharp eyes. She knew everything clearly. Humph. When you rushed abroad 3 years ago, I guessed something was up between you two. After you came back, it was even more obvious. I couldn't even bear to look. My mom covered her eyes in disgust. If someone can't see this, they must be blind. Daniel's uncle, who felt wronged, was silently fuming. He could only vent his anger on Daniel. You brat, using such a roundabout tactic, lying to me, saying you like Alyssa's ex-boyfriend. Daniel's uncle sneered. Hearing me say it'd be better if you liked Alyssa, you must be very pleased, right? Yes, very pleased. Daniel's uncle was so angry that he wanted to hit him. Daniel held my hand and stood up. Then we won't disturb your two-person world. Behind us, Daniel's uncle was fuming. Listen to him. Is that something a human being would say? Saying he won't disturb us? I think he's just afraid that we'll disturb him. Shameless. Great. He probably got it from you. Their voices gradually faded away. Outside, it was windy and snowy. Daniel bent down to tidy my scarf. All the way, he held my hand tightly. I asked curiously, where are we going? He smiled. To our own two-person world. Our touching palms were warm. It was winter, but for no reason. I thought of the green branches in spring and the gentle spring breeze. The snow covering the long street was melting quietly bit by bit. Outside, the sun was shining brightly. It was such a rare fine day. So, I was about to start my love affair. Daniel's extra. When my dad remarried, I supported it. But I really didn't like Alyssa at first. When we first met, she gave me a big hug, burning like the midsummer sun. Too close. I didn't like it. She had a beautiful smile, but I just couldn't stand the sight of it. Hypocritical. Alyssa, I thought it was all fake. I opposed her at every turn. Finally, she stopped smiling gently at me. When we passed each other, she would sometimes step on my foot, real, headstrong, and unyielding. I started to find her more tolerable. When I was 16, during a thunderstorm, I huddled in the corner, too scared to move. She suddenly came over and hugged me. At that moment, I felt that my heartbeat was louder than the thunder outside. She said, "Don't be afraid, sister is here. No matter what happens, I will never leave you alone." It was just her comfort as a sister. Ordinary, extremely ordinary, but deep in my heart, I shamelessly thought, what if I wanted more? She started dating. The light shone on her, and she was smiling shyly, looking like a perfect couple. I was so jealous that I could die. Sister is dating. Will she abandon me? I was as pitiful as a dog, wagging my tail at her, begging for attention, until she said, no. Would she really not abandon me just because she said so? I wasn't sure, so I accidentally ran into her and her boyfriend on various occasions. A man is always most sensitive to another man's intentions. I was taking a gamble. Finally, she came home heartbroken after breaking up, and I let her see my out-of-control state on purpose. I did it on purpose. The slap landed heavily on my face. It hurt, but it also felt good. Sister, you told me to get out, saying I was disgusting, but I saw the answer in your eyes. My sister was really soft-hearted. Her wrists were fair and slender. She had 2 dimples on her lower back. She was so drunk that she vomited horribly and talked nonsense. Rub it for me. Where? Daniel, you impolite brat. She didn't know that just calling my name was enough to make me lose control. But without her permission, I would never cross the line. It was a pity that when she woke up the next day, she was that cold and heartless sister again. She had forgotten everything. She booked a flight overnight and ran away quickly. How much worse could things get? I lost control and self-destructed. I almost wanted to die, but I thought, if I died, I couldn't see her again. I really missed her. I could still endure. She finally came back, deliberately avoiding me. I thought, this time, I needed to change my strategy. I deliberately wore old ill-fitting clothes, with the cuffs always a bit too short, so that she could inadvertently see my scars. You see, no one knew her better than I did. My sister was really soft-hearted. I really wanted to tell her. I